2015 set the bar. Two teams on the rise and exceeding expectations. The Mets, they got the best of the Cubs in last October's LCS, sweeping away any title hopes for the Windy City.
And strike three called. They haven't been to the World Series since 2000, and the Mets are on their way back.
For 2016, the expectation for both clubs isn't just to make the playoffs, but to win a World Series. The Cubs, they've looked apart. The Mets, hoping to regain that form. It's New York. It's Chicago. It's the first of 6 meetings this year, and it's coming up next with all of your enhanced coverage on MLB+.
Take a ride with us and enjoying baseball the advanced way. Those youngsters are advanced well beyond their age. Hopping on the 7, that looks like a lot of fun at the yard. And that looks like even more fun. That's how you take in a ball game, big fella. Love it. Citi Field is a great destination for baseball. We're glad to be with you tonight. MLB Plus, of course, StatCast, powered by Amazon Web Services. As we said just a moment ago, the rematch of the NLCS last year, Cubs and Mets, and we are at our MLB.com studios. Hi there, folks. Glad to have you with us, and we trust to this point you've had a very good week. My name is Darren Sutton. On the far side, MLB.com stats analyst Mike Petriello, and right next to me, Anthony Castrovence, MLB.com national correspondent. Now, when you take a look at this pitching matchup, it's an older gentleman who's been pitching like a young man, and it's a very young man who's been trying to get healthy year after year after year. When you talk about Lackey, he has been spectacular. The strikeout rate, Mike will go into that. But it's been a career high. It's been a powerful year for Lackey. But for Matt, Steven just trying to stay healthy. Bone spur now on that left elbow. We will watch very closely tonight because of that. When he is right, the stuff is great. But Matt explains what's going on with that elbow.
It's the same. Just kind of where I got checked out before. It's just nothing major, structural damage. So, that peace of mind is good. I feel like it's something I can pitch through. So that's just what I've been doing. It's just been kind of level, That's why it doesn't really get to a point where I feel like I have to come out. So.
Steven, has the doctor told you that what you feel is what you're going to feel for the rest of the season, and it's just up to you whether you can pitch through it or not?
Right, yeah.
And what do you feel about your ability to pitch through it? Do you think that's what you'll be able to do, or
we haven't made a
up and
decision
down
on that yet. I think I'm going to sit down with them and kind of make a decision on what we're going to do.
So it's kind of a game-by-game proposition. And Mike, he does have optimism. He hopes he can pitch through it, but you've taken a look at things very closely. He may be able to pitch through it, but he's having to change the way he pitches.
Yeah, you can pitch through a bone spur. We saw CC Sabathia pitch through one for the Yankees successfully for years, but we're already seeing with Matz that he's had to change the way he's pitching. You can see it right here over his last couple starts, and even dating back further than that, his spin rate on his sinker has been relatively consistent right up until last week when that spin rate shot up. And that's bad for a sinker because a higher spin rate means the ball stays up. You don't want that for a sinker. You can see there's extension changed as well. It's not that either of those things are necessarily bad by themselves, it's just evidence that something is different. We also see he's not throwing his slider anymore. There's a whole lot of things that have changed, not necessarily for the better, based on his last start where he didn't strike out a single Brave.
Not throwing his slider anymore. Interesting. It'll be fun to watch to see what he does break out tonight. He'll keep an eye on all of that. You're keeping an eye on something that's interesting, as we talked about, kind of an old man River who has found his youth, and a young man who hopes that he could find it at some point. It's an intriguing comparison between these two guys. One, 25 years old, another 37.
Yeah, how's this for context? Matt's, since he was drafted in 2009, 493 regular season innings in his professional career. And in that same time frame, Lackey has thrown 1,255. And mind you, that includes Lackey missing the entire 2012 season because of Tommy John surgery. So there's a guy who obviously pitched through a lot of pain in 2011 and took a lot of heat for the way he pitched that year. But you find out after the fact what he was grinding through, and he's grinded through a lot in his career and still going.
The Mets can't hit. I mean, they just can't hit effectively, and it's been a really frustrating couple of months for New York. And John Lackey knows what he's up against. Runners in scoring position, the Mets just aren't having any timely work.
Historically unclutch, actually, as wow. We were just discussing. Everybody wants to talk about the Mets pitching rotation, how everybody's hurt. That is not the issue with this team. It's the offense. We've seen, Wright went down, and Duda went down, and Lagares has been hurt, and Conforto got sent down. This team had a really good April and not a great May and not a great June. And if you look at runs per game, they're one of the bottom 3 teams in baseball. They can't score. Forget the pitching issues. This is where the Mets' problem lies.
Are we allowing ourselves at this point, we're not the 4th of July yet, are we allowing ourselves to take a look at the wild card standings? I know Mets fans, I know you are. Are you going to allow yourself to take a look at the wild card standings?
I try to stay far away from the wild card standings until we get into September. But if you are a Mets fan, I get it. I totally get it because especially the way that series played out against the Nats this past week, it's just a frustrating turn of events to face a Nationals team that was really struggling going in and to come out the way they did. So, yeah, until they get that offense going, I think you look at the wild card and hope for the best.
Can you believe it? Looking at the wild card standings. Tim McMaster is out at the ball yard, our T-Mobile roving reporter. Lindsey Berra is there as well. And Madeline Burke is back, the vice president. We're going to call you the vice president, stepping right in. That's the best I can come up with social media. My apologies.
I'm on board.
I'll do better than that, but we're going to have some fun tonight. We want people to interact, certainly with the hashtag MLB Plus, right?
Yes, thanks, fellas. And like you said, MLB Plus, tweet at us, use the hashtag, and your tweets could be featured in our broadcast tonight. First of all, let's take a look at what's going on out here in social media. Like you mentioned, Tim McMaster, our T-Mobile Greater Coverage reporter, is out at the ballpark with this gorgeous shot of Citi Field. And, you know, you guys were mentioning earlier, Steven Matz, his elbow's been an issue. And one other tweet that we found quite interesting was his teammate, Noah Syndergaard, taking to Twitter, "Hey, Matz, you want to talk about those bone spurs some more?" With the Game of Thrones reference, too, got to have a hat tip for that. It's what you do, Thor. You tweet and you throw things.
Nice. Nice. I like that. That's very good stuff. So take advantage of that. You'll make us fun because otherwise we're not fun. She makes us fun, and that certainly is a big part of it.
Yeah, and hey, it's social media day today, which is awesome for me and for you guys. But the Cubs are pretty stoked about it. I'm sure you guys are too. And again, use the hashtag MLB Plus. Be a part of it. Social media day. I mean, it's today.
It is today. Thank you, Madeline. We're glad you're hanging out with us all night tonight. We're glad you found us, and we're glad you're taking part. So if, in fact, you're doing it for the first time, you're enjoying what is a free feed of this game, and that's always a very good thing, we're going to grab you and hook you and explain to you right now what is StatCast.
Several years of research and development were realized in 2014 with the debut of MLB.com's StatCast, the first ever reliable measurement of every play on a baseball field. Pioneered by MLB Advanced Media and debuted with prototypes at the 2014 All-Star Game, League Championship Series, and World Series, StatCast's roots can be traced back roughly a decade earlier to MLB's introduction of pitch tracking. Pitch tracking delivered a never-before-seen wealth of detailed information regarding every pitch thrown in the major leagues. Though a bold move at the time, today, pitch tracking technology is ubiquitous throughout broadcast television and baseball's digital products. But despite the data compiled on pitching, never before have there been reliable defensive statistics. The goal with StatCast was to leverage the technology to ensure that defense could be quantified and that a more complete picture of our game be made available to fans. To that end, all 30 ballparks have been outfitted with two distinctly different but collaborative technologies to allow for the data capture, optical tracking, and radar tracking. High-definition video camera arrays spaced 15 meters apart to capture stereoscopic video, and a 3D Doppler radar system which captures 2,000 samples per second of the entire baseball field. By marrying the data from each of these systems, it is now possible to scientifically quantify the skills and talents of players on the field using new player performance metrics.
When the lights come on, everybody's screaming, lighters in the sky, yeah, everybody's singing every word to every song of the girl that's taking home tonight. When the lights come on, everybody's screaming, lighters in the sky, yeah, everybody's singing every word to every song of the girl that's taking home tonight. When the lights come on.
We thank our friends with Broken Bow Records, Jason Aldean. Great way to get things going off at the ball yard. Steven Matz, we hope we see him at the ball yard all throughout the evening as he begins and is getting set to pitch in this one. The southpaw ready to roll. And we take a look at the Chicago Cubs in the starting lineup. A little bit of a switcheroo with Zobrist moving to right. He's played there a handful of times this year. And he also is at the top of the batting order. When you take a look at the lineup, How about Mr. Rizzo? Though he's facing a lefty, he's been oh so very good southpaw against southpaw pitchers.
He has been the best lefty-on-lefty hitter in baseball, and that's really impressive because you think about a lefty hitter, you think about a guy who very often gets platoon for, but not Anthony Rizzo. He's in there every single day, and when you look at him over the last couple of years, he's always been a very good player. Now he's a superstar. His strikeouts are down, power is up. He's one of the top 6 or 7 hitters in baseball this year. He's an absolute monster in the middle of a really deep lineup.
Matt's ready to roll for the 14th time this year, 3.29 ERA. He's got 7 victories. Command is excellent, and that's never been in question. How he does it and the pitches he uses may be different, but he has always had very good command. 5-to-1 strikeout to walk ratio this year. We're underway. We're both sitting next to us. Glad to have you with us, and those that are at the ball yard, glad you've joined us wherever you may be. The switch hitter, Zobrist. Right away, he gets things going with a base hit into left field. He was 5 of 16 in Cincinnati in a 3-game sweep for that club. He keeps on rolling with a base hit.
So the thing we're going to want to watch with Nats is not the velocity, right? Everybody looks at the elbow, you think that hurts his velocity. It's really not the case, and he hit 95 on each of those pitches there. The velocity is fine. It's going to be about the location, it's going to be about the spin rate and the extension, and the fact that he is no longer using his slider, so he can't really keep hitters off that fastball.
You can't overstate the importance of him giving them some innings tonight. They got 11 2/3 innings out of their starters in that series against the Nats this week. So you combine that situation with what we saw from Matz his last time out, and of course what he's dealing with physically, and you know, it could be a recipe for disaster. So they definitely need some innings out of him.
Chris Bryant at 280. Chris Bryant with 21 home runs. Nats will have to use that changeup more, you could imagine, as you see what pops down below the spin rate, and that will come up in discussion with regard to a sinker extension. Some good extension that time, and that's been debated of late as well.
Yeah, can I already raise some warning bells here? Is it too early for that? His first 2 pitches are both sinking fastballs. The spin rate was 21.27 and 21.33, and this most recent one, 21.57. This is all in RPMs. His average for the sinking fastball has been about 20.53, so he's up almost 100 RPMs. That's bad for a ball that's supposed to sink. That's exactly what we saw last week, and this is exactly what's going to happen.
And that didn't sink. It's driven deep to left field. That one is gone, and the Cubs strike first. Chris Bryant, for the 22nd time this year, touches all 4 bags. Mike, you were right on it. Fastball not with that downward dive, overspinning, coming to the plate, staying up. Give credit to Bryant, though. He takes advantage. He had an incredible series in Cincinnati. Cubbies, 2-0.
How's your week been, Sutton? Having a good week?
I'm having a great week.
You're not having as good a week as Chris Bryant. He's been off the chain, as the kids say. Yeah, hit 571 in that series against the Reds. Of course, had the first ever 3-homer, 2-double game in Major League history, which is still hard to wrap your mind around. This is just a superstar talent who's starting to put up superstar numbers.
A breaking ball is what goes back to work against Anthony Rizzo as it misses low and away. He wanted a fastball in again. I think he was hoping for a little bit of movement. It stayed just above the knees, and he was ready for it.
Yeah, the velocity is actually a little higher than normal. We've seen him hit 95 a couple of times there. He's usually more in the 93, 94 range. You almost wonder if he's trying to maybe compensate for everything else, but I mean, the good news is that he's not down in 88, 89. That's where you know something was seriously structurally wrong. But as I think Lindsey Bear is going to tell us later, it's not really what the bone spur is about. It's not about velocity. It's about movement. It's about placement. It's about your other pitches. And as you said, Anthony, you cannot leave a ball up to Chris Bryant, of all people.
Dying for some exit velocity. The sooner you can give it to us on that long ball.
I can tell you right now, 103 miles off the bat, 387 feet. Really got a hold of that one.
Good looking curveball evens the count at 2-2. Bryant cashes in on his exit velocity. It's because of the launch angle. High bouncing ball out to first. Loney to the bag. Loney for the first out. You guys have both talked about this and the fact, Mike, that he's going to have to do away, or appears to be doing away, with the slider a little bit more, and Anthony is going to have to be leaning on other pitches.
Yeah, and you know, young pitchers have to make adjustments at the major league level as it is, you know, that second year adjustment, as it were. But to have to adjust within the season because of a physical ailment like this and a pitch that was really progressing well for him, that slider. They call it the Dan Worthen slider after the Mets pitching coach. It's a bit of a harder slider, and it's a really effective weapon. So to kind of essentially take that away, which is what we've seen the last couple starts, and I suspect we'll see it again tonight, is a very major adjustment to be making on the fly for a second-year pitcher.
Yeah, we just saw on that graphic 10% almost that he's been throwing the slider this year, but that was heavily weighted towards the beginning of the year. He's thrown it once in the last 2 starts. I'd be surprised if we see it at all tonight.
Changeup misses away. Get to know Wilson Contreras if you haven't already. This goes back to what you're talking about. The pitch usage, the slider way down with regard to how much he is using it. Show it to you one more time, which means more changeups.
Yeah, and that's over his last 4 starts. If I had done this over his last 2 starts, I'd probably say about 0.5% because he's really given it up entirely. It's not that, like, that wasn't his best pitch. It wasn't the only pitch he could succeed with, but that's the kind of pitch that just takes the hitter's eye at a different angle, a different velocity. Now they can sit on that fastball, and I think that's what's going to be a problem for him.
That's the pitch that, you know, to be, and all these guys in this rotation are elite. So he's probably always going to be the 3rd, 4th starter as long as he's in a group with Syndergaard and Harvey and them. But that's the pitch that takes you to kind of an elite level. You know, having a strong secondary pitch of that nature to, as you say, throw the hitters off. So again, you remove that from the equation, and it's a different pitcher.
Great job elevating there, changing the line of sight. You know what Matz is doing by throwing that pitch? He's using what he has. He realizes it's not going to be sinker. It was a good breaking ball down, a couple of them, and then a fastball up.
Yeah, and he's still, listen, a lefty who throws 95 miles an hour. I think people are freaking out over the bone spur and thinking there's no chance he can succeed because he had a really rough start last time out. And I don't think that's true. You know, you can still be effective with what he's got. It just, I think for him, it's more concerning than anybody else because he's had so many injuries in his past.
I think it's also the accumulation factor where you hear about Syndergaard pitching with a bone spur, Matz pitching with a bone spur. Right. Wheeler seems to have dodged a bullet, but that all kind of happened at the same time where he had a slight setback in his recovery. So
as the team's not winning.
As the team's not winning and not hitting, you add all these things together. And yeah, we heard the word bone spur so much, you almost feel like the Mets should be called the Spurs right now.
Javi Baez with the base hit into right field. Boy, it's fun to watch him play with such energy. The defense moving around for the Mets quite a bit already. You take a look at the outfield arms, and Brandon Nimmo, the pride of Wyoming, with the best arm in the outfield, has Drupal Cabrera. You wanted to talk about him at short.
Yeah, so this is an interesting guy to me, just having covered him extensively in Cleveland back in the day, and there was some thought that he was done as a shortstop when they traded him in 2013, and he went to the Nationals at the time and played second base. And you think, okay, that's the end of that, because his defense was always a question. His range really regressed in his time with the Tribe. And the Mets even had questions. Terry Collins has been very open about saying he talked to various scouts when they signed this guy this winter, and they told him he is, same thing, done as a shortstop. But they're happy with him. You know, there's metrics, you know, UZR and defensive runs saved that obviously suggest this is not an elite defender. But at the same time, Fangraphs has some good numbers about him. His percentage of turning the likely plays and the routine plays is as high as it's ever been for his career at shortstop. So again, he's not going to make the dazzling plays. He's not going to make the Francisco Lindor type plays, but he's going to make the routine and just above routine plays for you.
He's a new Derek Jeter, basically.
Yeah.
Doesn't have a lot of range in either direction, but he'll get what gets it to him.
1-1 the count to Matt Caesar. And we're already seeing the adjustment here, and he's doing it on the fly. You have to give Matt's credit. He realizes it's not going to be two-seamers down. It's going to be rising fastballs in this case, breaking balls down, and changeup. So he went changeup there to hit the outside corner to Matt Caesar. 275, slugging 438. He's got 3 home runs this year. That one dives down and in. That, folks, was a slider.
So there you go.
Taking a peek in it with our T-Mobile greater coverage cam from down that right field line.
Just trying to, I think, remind the Cubs that he still has it. You know, listen, pitches move the way they move, and one pitcher will call it this, one pitcher will call it that. So I think, you know, it showed up as a changeup, but you're right, it absolutely had the movement of a slider. The point is that the Cubs know he's got another pitch that can move in a different way. That's not a fastball or a curveball.
Trying everything. He just quick pitched him there to the plate.
That's almost a little worrisome, too. If he's already trying to reach into that bag of tricks in the first inning.
Worrisome, but then you give him credit. I mean, there are some who have the inability to slow the game down, and he wished that he'd been out there a lot more. That was a slider. And that was Rocketed foul, another breaking ball, down and in. Not the slower curveball. If you see a pitch, correct me if I'm wrong. You see a pitch, Mike, in the 70-mile-an-hour range, that's the curveball. You see one 82, 83, 84, that's the slider, right?
Well, I don't know. I think the curveball is definitely in the 70s. His average for the changeup has been about 83, 84, and the slider's been kind of an 87, 88.
Okay.
So if it's on that border, it can occasionally be kind of hard.
That was a bad changeup.
Yeah, that's the issue, right?
Curveball. A high strike. Boy, he got a favor there. Not where he wanted it. He needed the call. Kind of grinding his way through it. Matt's getting comfortable in that first inning, but not before a pitch down and into Chris Bryant was crushed to left field. And for Bryant, his 22nd home run of the year. Mike walked us through some of the StatCast numbers already. StatCast replay powered by Amazon Web Services.
That ball was right down the middle, and you could tell it was supposed to sink. It was supposed to be too low, and it didn't. It stayed at the knees. It was supposed to kind of dive to the shins. And Chris Bryant, you cannot make a mistake for Chris Bryant. Actually, 387, not one of his longer home runs of the year. He's already got almost as many home runs as he did last year, and about 200 fewer plate appearances. Chris Bryant's an entirely different topic of his own that I'm sure we're going to get into a lot tonight. But good start for the Cubs, and boy, getting down to the Cubs if you're that Mets offense, it's like the worst possible place you could be in right now.
Well, you look at Bryant and his top 10 in exit velocity this year. He's 9 for 10 with 6 home runs. So, again, it's about that launch angle.
Yeah, and he actually is interesting. He talked about launch angle this offseason. He's one of the guys who knows about it, and he says, I want to get between 22 and 26. And how many guys even know what that means? And what it really was for him is he wanted to reduce the uppercut in his swing. He wanted to reduce his strikeouts because that was his big issue last year. A lot of swing and miss, and it's worked. Strikeout percentage down from 30% to 22%. Hitting for more power, making more contact. He's really pushed himself up to that next level of player.
So John Lackey had 10 consecutive outings from May 1st in which he went a 1.97 ERA. Opponents hit 185 against him with an on-base of 259. He was spectacular. Then he went down to South Florida, and he was just human. I mean, the bottom line is he was human, and he struggled.
Well, he's going to have those kind of outings at this stage in his career because teams get up there and swing against this guy. He is a very much a pitch-to-contact pitcher at this stage, and he says that. So, they're going to dink and dunk him sometimes, and that's what Miami did.
Yeah, this game, a couple infield hits, as you said. We saw there Addison Russell threw a ball away, and he did give up a huge home run to Justin Bauer, so that didn't help. But this was not an implosion so much for John Lackey as the fact that he is a human pitcher who will have one of those games every once in a while, even for the Cubs.
Pitchers like Lackey will tell you, though, even if maybe there's a ball kicked or the range isn't there, it's on me. I mean, that's what's fun about playing behind John Lackey and how he does his work. Let's take a look at how he does his work. Strikeouts are way up, so tell me which one of these, Mike, which one of these has been the most dangerous weapon in raising the strikeout tally?
It is, without question, the cutter. The cutter has become really, really important for him. He's been using it more the last couple of years. If you look at it, this is the one scenario where I'll actually use batting average because, we're talking about what happens when the ball gets hit. Last couple of years on the cutter, 220, 210, 250. This year, 125, and he's really been using it more. And what's interesting is he's been throwing more strikes. It's as simple as that. He has the highest percentage of first pitch swings in all of baseball, and he gets ahead of guys, and it's kind of downhill from there for the hitter.
Brandon Nimmo leads things off. What a great story he has been at the top of the order for the New York Mets. They have been holding an open audition. That beautiful young pup that you saw when we came on the air with the pipe in his mouth has been trotting and see if he can hit. Well, Nimmo has. There's that little cutter over the outside corner, a little dart to it, and a strike to Nimmo out of Wyoming.
Out of Wyoming. So talk about finding a diamond in the rough there. Didn't even have a high school team, I believe. And
nope.
So this will be interesting. The leadoff experiment, that's where he profiles best right now. There's hope that there's more power in there, and that will show, because I know he shows it in batting practice. But shoot, if he's a high on-base guy and can satisfy your leadoff need, that's enough.
Yeah, no pressure, though. He was picked one selection before Jose Fernandez.
Yeah.
And I don't think Mets fans are ever going to forget that.
First ever first-round pick from the state of Wyoming. Legion ball, travel ball, showcases. That's how he found his way in front of prospects. He's right at the top of the order. Walker behind, and we certainly are focusing on Nimmo for good reason. We see some exit velocity, gets a little hot down by the bottom. They know that Kelly Johnson is back. Can be dangerous when there's contact made. He's become versatile, almost like a Cub. He's in left field, and Arnaud behind the plate.
Cheyenne, Wyoming. That's Tracy Ringlesby country. Finding Nimmo could not have been easy there. It's kind of a Disney reference.
Nimmo was an interesting guy. Like everybody, as you said, he shows the power in batting practice. Hasn't really shown up in the games. He's been in the minors for 6 seasons. He's got 30 homers.
Yeah.
And so, that's maybe not enough, but he's got a really good eye. Obviously, didn't show it right there, but a 385 on base percentage in the minor leagues. Of course, you don't see a lot of guys like John Lackey throwing that two-seamer blown away in the minor leagues.
Yeah. Defensively, the Cubs, Javi Baez can play anywhere you want him. And there is an arm in left field with Matt Caesar. That's how they stand defensively. Love watching the energy of Baez and Almora.
Yeah, Almora. I think we called his very first game, or one of his first few on this program. Really, really impressive defensive outfielder. You thought maybe when Fowler got hurt that would be the weakness that they couldn't fill, that they wouldn't have a center fielder. Almora's come up and done a really great job on defense.
Lackey's throwing hard out of the gates.
Yeah.
Hard and heavy. That swing and miss, that pitch to Nimmo was ridiculous.
He's actually getting really, really good extension, over 7 feet on that last pitch. So as you said, the pitch came out of his hand 95.7. For him is really good, but the perceived velocity at the hitter saw it as 97.1. For John Lackey at this stage in his career, it's incredibly impressive.
John stands 6'6", just for the point of contention as you look at the definition for extension, reaching out. A little bit more of a straight up recoil on the follow through there. Probably not quite the extension on that last pitch to Neil Walker. 258, 14 home runs.
It's a nice pitch.
Statcast replay powered by Amazon Web Services. And you talked about it earlier, right? And we saw it there with that two-seam fastball to Nimmo. Lower spin rate, good for two-seam fastball. Kind of sound like Tarzan there, sorry. But it's a good thing.
Yeah, a lower spin really means that, well, let's look at it this way. High spin on a fastball means it defies gravity, because gravity impacts every single pitch. It just stays up a little longer than you think, and that's great if you're going to get strikeouts. If you want to throw a sinker, you want to get ground outs, you want the ball to sink more, so low spin is actually a good thing.
Walker drives it into left center field toward the wall. Kind of an awkward little leap. Almora up against the wall. Makes the play for the out. One little hop, skip, and a jump there. Walker is retired.
It's an even scorebook either way.
You're watching MLB Plus featuring StatCast, and it's powered by Amazon Web Services. We're glad because we love doing it and we love our partnership. Yoenis Cespedes had 4 hits. He had 4 strikeouts. He was 4 of 12 in that stop in Washington that was not kind to the New York Mets. Everything's moving over the inside corner, strike 1.
It's amazing that, the Mets offense, as we talked about, it's kind of falling apart, but Cespedes is the one guy. He's really lived up to what he did last year, and I think everybody thought that was kind of a hot streak. He can never repeat that, and he hasn't quite repeated it, although he was for a lot of the season. He's going to be almost certainly announced as one of the All-Star starters, and deservedly so.
Yeah, he's traditionally been more of a boom or bust guy. Goes on those crazy stretches, and we saw that last year to the absolute extreme. Goes on the crazy stretch the first 6 weeks or so after the trade, and then very cold the last couple weeks of the regular season, and then early in the postseason. But you're right, Mike. He has been fairly consistent this year. His April was his best month by far, but been a force for them in general.
Over the outside corner, good fastball. That's strike 3. It was a very clean inning for the veteran Lackey. Nimmo and Cespedes both go down. Here's the very best of the Mets and Cubs right now.
That's drilled to deep center field. Lagares way back near the wall, and he makes the leaping catch. He took a home run away from Michael Franco. Took out a piece of the padding along the way. Malone looking for his first hit of the year. He drives one. Deep left field. Back goes Upton. Back near the wall. It's out of here. Bartolo has done it. The impossible has happened. The team vacates the dugout as Bartolo takes the long trot. His first career home run. This is one of the great moments in the history of baseball.
Drives that ball in the air out into deep right center. Hayward is back on it.
Did he catch it? What a catch by Hayward.
Unbelievable play. I mean, you just got talking about how good the Cubs are defensively, and since he's come into the league, nobody has saved more runs than Jason Hayward. This is just a spectacular play, willing to give up the body.
Soler cranks it deep to left. Way out of here, off the board.
This is a little bit of a hanger. And boy, did Soler ever get into that one. My goodness, this ball is crushed.
Hit the bottom part of the video board in left.
Just one way to look at it, Mike. The Cubs, they are StatCast darlings, aren't they? I mean, everything explosive that they do. Speed, power. Not always the right routes. We'll be clear about that because guys are playing all over the field.
StatCast, advanced, traditional, any kind of stat you could think of. The Cubs this year are one of the top 5 teams in it. They're probably the most well-built team for a million different reasons we've seen in a really long time.
We're watching Steven Jacob Matz very closely again in that first inning. He kind of made his own adjustment. Bryant threw two-seamer down to Bryant. It didn't dive.
Yeah, we looked at, we kind of knew what to look for, right? We talked about velocity and spin and everything. Velocity average in the first inning, 94.6, which is actually, that's pretty good. That's very close to his season average. His extension was back up to normal, which is a great sign for him. Back to 6.6, which is really where it's always been. Spin was still high. It was almost exactly what it was last week in Atlanta. We saw that bite him on that pitch to Bryant that stayed up.
So he's adjusted to the pitches we've just seen. Fastballs, a little more up in the zone. Changeup. He throws a changeup that misses away there to Addison Russell. And then just a handful of sliders, but the slower right there. Curveball. Boy, that's a good, tight, late-breaking curveball, though.
That's a good one. We saw the one that ended the last inning. Yeah, it was a strikeout, but it's kind of a fat curveball high in the zone. He got pretty lucky that Matt Caesar didn't crush that ball. That was a really nice curveball just here.
Yeah, I got to tell you, Mike, not to pat you on the back too hard, but sometimes you can get overwhelmed with these numbers, and they're so new to us. To see the spin rate after every pitch, to know exit velocities and all these things, but to have a practical use of it where a guy like Matz is obviously fighting through something and even makes a point that he's having trouble finishing his pitches, and then to have the data to back it up as you did in your piece today is terrific. You learn so much more about these guys from this stuff.
Sinker was up, but it still dove enough that time. He went back to a two-seamer. He gets Addison Russell on a ground out. Here's John Lackey.
Yeah, and I think you're absolutely right, because you don't want to just look at the numbers and say, oh, I'm inventing a story. We already knew that he was hurting. Right. He was saying he couldn't finish his pitches, and for that to be backed up in the numbers, that really gives you confidence that, oh, there's a real thing happening here.
And obviously, this is something that the front offices are doing on every player at every instance. It's such a huge part of the evaluative process in today's game.
Over through one back-to-back to Lackey, 2-0 the count.
I mean, the number one separator in today's game is injury prevention, or not signing the guy who's about to get injured, or not trading for the guys who might be hurt and you don't know it. So there are numbers sometimes that could, if you're looking closely enough, can catch your eye and that sort of thing. So if we knew nothing about Matz's elbow right now, I'm sure there would still be savvy people in the front office picking up on changes in spin rate, changes in extension, and saying something does not look right here.
Yeah, it's really, when you look at it, obviously they're behind the Nationals, they need to win games, but that's not really, I think, the priority. The priority is not allowing him to change his mechanics so much that he ends up hurting something else. Right. If he's favoring the elbow and then hurts his shoulder, that could be even worse, and that's what's most important for them.
Which I think is a very good point. We've seen that time and time again.
We're kind of making that point about Kershaw today. Clayton Kershaw going on the DL with the back issue, and on one hand you're relieved that it's not an arm issue if you're a Dodgers fan. On the other hand, it could have become an arm issue very quickly had he continued to grind through that.
Full count to Lackey. John with the bat in his hand is 4 of 35. That's a 114 clip. He struck out more than half the time. That's my simple science rule. 18 strikeouts and 35 at bats. And he goes down this time. Madden has him in the 8th slot. Albert Almora is in the 9 slot. That's got to chase up with a fastball there. He just put him away.
Yeah, that at bat looked a lot more like the Mats we've seen. He actually wasn't throwing it quite as hard, but he had, up until that last pitch, gotten the spin down. Obviously, Lackey's a pitcher, but that is the kind of effectiveness we've kind of seen from Mats when he's at his best.
This is only the 4th time this season the Cubs have batted the pitcher 8th. And they did it with regularity last year. Where are we at with that?
So as a quote-unquote stats guy, I know that's one of the things I'm supposed to care about, and I really just I don't think it makes a big difference either way. The way I look at it, as far as lineup construction goes, I know fans love lineup construction. Look at that, Albert Almora making him look good because now he's got the second leadoff man on base.
There you go. Exit velocity right before our very eyes. Look forward to that one, a double for Almora. That's his 6th double of the year in his 21st game. He's slugging over 450 now. The young man that they have to find a spot for. Looks like at quick glance, 107, just a bit under 107 with that exit velocity.
Well, did you nail it though? Right? They got to find a spot for him. Schwarber goes down, Fowler goes down. Okay, well, we'll bring up Almora. Montero's not hitting. We'll bring up Wilson Contreras. There's just an endless funnel of talent on this team.
But when they said 5-year plan, they weren't lying.
They were not. Hey, Cubs fans sat through some brutal seasons to get to that layer of depth, but here it is, and it's a beautiful sight.
Ben Zobrist, the switch hitter from the right side against the southpaw. He's a good right-handed hitter this year, 95 plate appearances, 321, 415, 494 triple slash from the right side. He's having a really good year, but a little bit more quiet of late.
Yeah, actually,
it was an explosive start, though.
That his May, his numbers for May: 406 batting average, 483 on base, 653 slugging, which is obviously absurd and unreasonable. And he didn't keep that up in June because no one possibly could have done so. But yeah, kind of a rough month. Hit 211, 336 on base.
And at this stage of the career, you have to imagine so much of that is tied into being in one spot more consistently. Now tonight he's starting in right field for, I believe, the 5th time this season. So yeah, he's had a lot more stability at second base. And you almost wonder, I mean, so much of his value was tied into playing all over and delivering at the plate, kind of in spite of that, despite those distractions. But yeah, you wonder what kind of offensive player he might have been if he'd been settled in one spot the whole time. But obviously there's tremendous value when you can play him all over the way Joe Madden got to do early in his career.
I wonder what last winter would have looked like if he'd taken the Nationals' money. Because they wanted him before they went after Daniel Murphy.
Yeah.
Obviously, Daniel Murphy's been out of this world as well. So where would the Cubs have gone? Where would Murphy have ended up? It's amazing how many dominoes would have fallen based on that.
It's true. And Murphy was probably 3rd or 4th on the Nats pecking order there. They tried to trade for Brandon Phillips, had a deal worked out, and that fell through. So yeah, a lot of dominoes fell because of that. Murphy was just kind of lingering out there. He was really hoping it would work out with the Mets, and almost was kind of left without that last musical chair until Zobrist went to the Cubs.
Murphy having a great year, as you guys have talked about, but we know Zobrist will find his way on base, no matter if you look at that first number with his batting average. Hold that pitch low, a fastball kept it into the fingertips. Gentlemen, these are the numbers you guys are talking about.
Yeah, there's no wrong answer here.
No.
Obviously I think the Cubs fans are voting in Zobrist to be the all-star leader. I would go with Murphy. Honestly, it doesn't matter. They'd both make the team no matter what. They are so far ahead of every other second baseman in the league. And these are guys who've been around for a while. Zobrist has had his good years, but mostly he's been a pretty good player. And Murphy is consistently decent up until the end of last year. And it's amazing to see these guys take this step forward.
Zobrist sees so many pitches. He's got his count full. He's gone to a 3-0 count 29 times this year. 29 times. He just is not afraid to see pitches or spoil them. Although he probably would tell you he should have crushed that hanging breaking ball.
You don't want to put too much emphasis on a second inning at bat, right? But no, if he gets a base hit here, that's 3-0. We know the Mets offense is struggling badly. You can see that Mets is already up to almost 50 pitches in 2 innings. I don't want to say this is where the game turns, but this is one of those at-bats you might forget about later in the game that I think is going to be hugely important.
Elevated the fastball and gets it to the right side back of second base. And so there's your big at-bat, and in the end, I think you're right. I think if this inning extends and another run crosses the plate, it's a very, very different situation. Instead, the Cubs are shut down. They do have another base runner against Matz. You see with Darno a conversation about kind of evolving. And I think, Mike, you picked on something that's very interesting, and that's adjusting within the game. Pitchers should get credit. They should for making adjustments within the game. But if you're adjusting your mechanics You're adjusting the pitches you use, that's one thing. You're adjusting your mechanics, I'm guessing that's another.
That's a big problem. And John Lackey is a great example. He always changes his approach. One game he'll throw more of this pitch, one game he'll throw more of that pitch. He is the definition of the wily veteran at this point, although we saw he's still throwing it very hard. But you're right. You see guys start dropping the release point or getting out in front of the ball. They're starting to change. It just goes down the kinetic chain. They're putting stress on different muscles that aren't used to that. That's how you get injured. And so many times we see guys say, well, I was playing through something. I didn't want to lose my job. I didn't want to say anything about it, and ended up hurting both themselves and the team.
Tim McMaster, he is ready. Our T-Mobile Greater Coverage reporter. College World Series goes to Coastal Carolina. Arizona coming up short. What a great College World Series it was. But that's kind of been the talk. And some of the storylines, I know you're going to be embedded all over the ballpark, but starting with Omaha out there at Citi Field.
Yeah, we're bringing a little of the Midwest here to the great city of New York, Darren. Thanks a lot. Yeah, College World Series. Really, the story of this College World Series was the upset. Just getting there, a lot of teams pulled off upsets. And then once you get there, to see Coastal Carolina, a mid-major, win it all. And they went the distance, 3 games in the final series, and they win 4-3 today over Arizona. But plenty of connections between Coastal Carolina and our game tonight here at Citi Field. And it starts with the guy who started this game tonight for the Mets, Steven Matz. He didn't go to Coastal Carolina, but if he had gone to college, that's where he was headed. He was signed to play for Coastal Carolina before the Mets took him and pulled him away, and he went straight into pro ball. But he still has that pride. He was actually wearing a championship belt around the clubhouse today after he found out that Coastal Carolina won. It keeps going from there, though. Michael Paez, the shortstop for that Coastal Carolina team, he actually scored a run in today's final game. He was the Mets' 4th-round draft choice earlier this month. And then if you look at the other side of things in the Cubs, Tommy La Stella of the Cubs went to Coastal Carolina, actually won a bet with Jake Arrieta earlier in the College World Series because Arrieta went to TCU. So when Coastal Carolina knocked out TCU, Jake Arrieta now has to get a tattoo of Coastal Carolina after losing the bet with Tommy La Stella. So plenty of ties to the College World Series, and certainly Coastal Carolina with our MLB Plus game tonight.
One away quickly. Loney goes the other way. Tim, what else do you have for us? What digging and snacking are you going to do getting around that ballpark?
Yeah, well, I've already been out, guys, to center field. That's where there's a lot of fun here at Citi Field as far as kids go. Lots of stuff to do. So later in the show, we'll check in on some of that. And I think later on we'll be checking in also on the All-Star vote, because this is it, guys. The voting ends at midnight Eastern tonight. So we'll have a little bit of that later in the game as well.
Tim McMaster joining us. Thank you, Tim.
Thank you.
Our T-Mobile Greater Coverage reporter.
If I'm Jake Arrieta, I'm paying whatever kangaroo court fee I got to pay to get out of getting the Coastal Carolina tattoo. That's a little too extreme for me.
I tend to agree with you. Folks will call us no fun, and that's fine. I'll take that label. One away quickly. We haven't moved right into it. Didn't have a chance to talk about Loney. We'll talk about him next time. As Drupal Cabrera, switch hitter, and he flips it on around against Lackey and bats from the other side, from the left side.
And do you know what we haven't seen so far? Where, in the bottom of the second, John Lackey, anything that's not a fastball. Every single one of his pitches so far has been either a 4-seamer or a 2-seamer. We haven't seen any breaking pitches whatsoever.
There you go.
There we go.
Snapped you off a curveball, 12-6.
Thanks, John.
Just to show that he had it. But you're right. And the funny thing about it is, with what you're saying, astutely pointing out, we really didn't see any straight fastballs at all. We've seen all fastballs, but they all were moving.
Right, and this is, it goes back to spin rate. We talk with guys about, Nathan Eovaldi throws real hard, middle of the road spin rate. It's a straight fastball. Guys can hit straight fastballs. It's those fastballs with movement and placement like that.
Goodness gracious. That's
ripped.
exactly what you're talking about, Anthony. That started at the hip and ended up over the outside corner.
That was some crazy movement. And yeah, it's kind of, I think he might have borrowed the Bartolo Colon playbook for this particular outing.
Yeah, that was a 2-seam fastball. Now we've talked, Fernando Perez, our friend, former big league player, has been on the show, and I remember talking to him about it. 2-seam fastball and sinker are kind of used interchangeably, but that's not always, they don't move always the same way. That one obviously moved to the side. It wasn't straight down. Whatever you want to call it, he might call it whatever he wants. It's a really effective pitch if he can move it like that.
The well-traveled Kelly Johnson, well, not that well-traveled, just Atlanta to New York every year. He is brought back. It's a couple of years in a row. He's a very good teammate. If you make a mistake, he has good power. And we talked about it, how he's added outfield and certainly first base on the infield to where he can help you. Corners on the outfield. 2-0 the count to Kelly.
It's kind of become a thing where you don't want to be the team that signs Kelly Johnson in the winter, because that can only mean your season's going to go a bit south and you'll be trading him in the summer. That's no knock on Kelly Johnson. He's a quality player, but yeah, moved around 4 times he's been traded in the last 3 seasons.
I'm going to guess he's not going to sign with the Braves this upcoming winter.
Lackey's been spectacular to start things. He has faced 6. He has struck out 3. There's been 2 outs in the air. There has been a ground ball out as well. Lindsey Berra is also part of this broadcast team. We're glad because of that. She caught up with Ron Darling, a forward thinker statistically. We know how he calls games. Certainly glad to have him seeing it that way. And Lindsey's conversation, trying to get those Mets going. I think that's probably their first subject.
Ron, the Mets are 29th in runs scored and last in batting average right now. As a pitcher, how difficult is that to stomach going out there every night?
You know, that's a great question, because I think that most people will tell you that as a pitcher, you have to ignore that stuff. That's baloney. Pitchers definitely think about that and want to get more runs, of course, but I think reality of being a good teammate is you can't let them do their thing. You got to do your thing and not worry about it, because if you do, it might affect your pitching, and that's what you're in charge of.
Anybody who throws a baseball for a really long time is going to feel some sort of elbow discomfort at some point. What do you think of the whole Mats Syndergaard situation?
Well, it's interesting. I think the first time it happens to you, it scared me when it happened to me. I had 3 different elbow operations for bone chips and bone spurs. First time, it really scares you because it's your baseball mortality. Yeah. So you think about it. But I think if you talk to enough veteran players, veteran pitchers, they will tell you that the key is that it's not going to hurt your arm. You're good to go. Let the doctors prescribe the inflammation medicine, pain medication, things that'll get you through it. And as long as you know that going in, then you can just kind of relax and say, okay, it's going to hurt, there's going to be some pain, but as soon as the season's done, I can get an operation that'll take all that pain away and it won't affect my career. If you know that, it makes it much easier.
The honesty of Ron Darling. Love that. Pitchers do think about it. I was raised by one who won 324 games who thought about it quite a bit when he wasn't being supported. I think they do. Lindsey Berra standing by. Lindsey, the other part of the conversation, I think, as you mentioned, ties to any kind of help they can get offensively. And even though he's struggling, seeing what Jose Reyes may be in the next couple of weeks to a month to help this team out.
Jose Reyes played last night down for Binghamton. He actually had 2 RBIs last night. He had gone 0 for 13, I think, in his first 13 at bats. But it seems like he's getting his bat back. He's learning third base, and I think right now the Mets have had so much bad news lately, just one bad thing after another, that having Jose Reyes and his generally positive attitude and that big smile of his around here would probably be a good thing. Of course, we obviously have to get past Jose Reyes and his recent issues, but I think that what Jose Reyes does on the field would be a great help for the Mets right now. I think you're right.
Lindsey, everybody's been panicking about Mats' bone spur, but also Noah Syndergaard has a bone spur, but those aren't really created equally, right? It seems like maybe there's more concern over Mats than Syndergaard.
Pretty much everybody who's ever thrown a baseball probably has bone spurs. We could check all of our elbows right now, and I'm pretty much sure that we all probably have some. It depends on how big they are, whether or not they've broken off, and what other bodies they're touching in your elbow. All that goes to whether or not you're going to feel pain. And Steven Matz evidently is a lot bigger than Noah Syndergaard's. But Syndergaard, who's making a lot of light of this situation, actually has had issues with his elbow 4 times already in his career. He's had a bunch of MRIs. He was on the DL with a pronator strain 2 years ago. And basically any of those things that cause inflammation in your elbow could end up causing bone spurs. The inflammation triggers that bone growth. And depending on, like I said, how big it gets and where it is and whether or not it becomes a bone chip, and whether or not you can handle the pain is how you end up proceeding. If they have to take Steven Matz off, it's going to be interesting because he is 5 years post Tommy John. And depending on the size of the bone spur, there's new studies that say if you take the whole thing off, it can compromise the integrity of that Tommy John surgery. So they want to leave some of the bump. It's going to be interesting to see how they handle all of this. But while Syndergaard is making light of it, it has had some effect on him over the last 2 years.
Lindsey, thank you very much. Lindsey Berra at the ballpark. Good interview with Ron Darling. A flutter changeup. Lucky he got it back out over the plate to start off Anthony Rizzo. Good stuff to Chris Bryant, though. Maybe the best curveball he has thrown in the game to strike out while Lindsey was enlightening us. to get Chris Bryant.
And a couple of changeups there too, and you can already see tonight he's throwing the changeup more often, and he's got to do something to make up for the lack of the slider. And it seems like the changeup can be actually an effective weapon.
And just to follow Lindsay's point about all bone spurs not being created equal, look at John Lester. We learned this spring what he's been pitching through the last couple of years, and the Cubs knew it when they signed him to that monster contract. So obviously that could be viewed as a sort of a ticking time bomb in his elbow, but he's been masterful with it in there regardless.
Really good curveball to Rizzo. Rizzo's so dangerous against lefties. If you just look at batting average, as we'll go surf somewhere else anyway on the web, but if you just look at batting average, you would just say Rizzo doesn't do well against lefties. That's just not the case. I mean, he keeps that shoulder in. He's not afraid to use the bigger part of the ballpark more often probably than against righties, and the numbers bear that out. Curveball is high to Wilson Contreras, 1-0 the count.
Yeah, the knock on Rizzo early in his major league career was the struggles against lefties, but he made the adjustment as he went along. And to see that graphic, there it is, since 2014, his production against them. That's how you become. That's how you go from great prospect to great major league player.
That's the one you're talking about.
WRC plus, right? Weighted runs created plus.
Right.
There's complicated math that goes into it, but basically the idea is that getting on base counts and hitting for power counts, and the whole idea is that what ballpark you play in counts too. It's a lot easier to hit in Coors Field than say San Diego. So it's weighted so that it's real easy to compare players to one another because it just sets 100 as average. So he is 47 percentage points above average. That's a really easy way to look at it. And the fact that he's on the top of that list, we saw some other great names there. It's really impressive for him. Wilson
Contreras reaches. He has now walked 6 times. He's played in 13 games. He's hitting .333 coming in, the on base over .440 now. He's got 3 home runs. He's got a pair of doubles. You look at those 3 home runs. He hit 3 home runs, Wilson Contreras did. In his first 3, they were shortened, but his first 3 minor league seasons, he hit 3 home runs.
This is, I believe, his 5th game starting behind the plate. He has now thrown out as many runners as Miguel Montero did in 36 starts behind the plate. And we know Montero's not hitting either, so you wonder, is Montero going to get his job back?
I'm not so sure. And, to me, that was kind of, we've established this. The Cubs have a lot of good things going on this season. One thing that hasn't been going so well for them is kind of that track meet for opposing teams. The few times they do get on base against this pitching staff. Cubs had thrown out just 19.5% of opposing base runners coming into the night. That was the 3rd worst percentage in baseball, and a lot of that is Montero, of course. So the change you get from Contreras, if what we're seeing here these first few days is real, and I think it is, based on the scouting reports on this kid, that's a very real change that could have a big impact come October.
Change up, fastball, Bayou. What a great sequence he just put on Baez. Set up that fastball. We know Baez can overextend, can swing and miss a lot. He's really improved on that this year. He just took him to school. That's a pitcher that knows what he's working with tonight. And you look at the strikeouts stacking up again. Change-ups before, Mike, and then what followed. He realizes he's not a 2-seam guy tonight. He's going to have to go up above the belt.
I love anything that changes the hitter's eye level. And you're right. It's not just about throwing pitches and hoping they work. It's about setting up the hitter. It's about putting the sequence together. So change up low, fastball high. If you can command that, that's a fascinating way to do it. And obviously it worked out really well for him because even like you said, Baez has struck out far fewer this year, and Matt still got him there. That was really nice.
Steven Matz, he's settling in okay, and it's pretty fun to watch. A couple of nights ago, the Chicago Cubs just went off, and Chris Bryant had an incredible game. We've been watching what happened with Chris Bryant in that 3-homer game. He had 5 hits, but it all started in a wild first inning for the Chicago Cubs. And it was a great stop in Cincinnati. We take a look at our StatCast replay of all that has gone on with the Chicago Cubs and all the damage they have done in the first. Powered by Web Services, and this is against Miami on June 24th.
This just goes to show up and down the lineup. we don't even have to call out the names here because it's almost literally everybody hitting the ball. Even Coughlin's had a tough year since coming back. Everybody's crushing the ball, and I think that's the biggest strength of this team is that you can have a lineup like they have today where Hayward's not playing, or Tarano's not playing, and there's still just a ton of talent. It's almost unreasonable. And just think about if Soler was there, if Schwarber was there. There's no weakness here.
First 9 to start it off. I didn't go quite far enough back. I was talking about that explosion against the Reds, but everyone pitched in that one, not just Chris Bryant. Amazing to see that happen, and that's why you call them StatCast darlings, and that's they're athletic and they're versatile and very dangerous.
Yeah, and I hope Tom Kohler wasn't watching that video, by the way. That was a rough inning for him. But yeah, the versatility of this club is really off the charts, and that's been something that's been a hallmark of Joe Maddon's managerial career. We saw it, of course, with the Rays, but this team really takes it to another level, because when you're talking about guys coming up and it's their initial exposure to the big leagues, which is a huge enough adjustment as it is, but then they're being thrown in these positions that, let's face it, in a lot of cases they barely know. You know, Wilson Contreras throwing out in left field and first base when he's not catching. I mean, this is a lot to put on a guy's plate. We saw it with Kyle Schwarber last year, and the adaptation that they get from these young players is as much the storyline as anything. It's not just the talent, it's the adaptation to a new league and sometimes a new position.
It's got to be the right guys, too, right? Obviously, that all starts with Joe Maddon, no question about that. But you got Ben Zobrist, who is, if known for anything, flexibility. You have Coghlan, who the A's got because they wanted him to be a mini Ben Zobrist, and now he's back. You know, it doesn't work for everybody. I never really liked the idea of putting Schwarber in left field because I never really thought he could be even a competent outfielder, and then, of course, he injured himself doing it. But you have guys like Chris Bryant who says, you know, I'm the third baseman, but we have our best defense when I'm in left field and Javi Baez is at third. It's really it's fun to see the guys all buy into it like that.
Watching that big breaking ball from right behind home plate via our T-Mobile Greater coverage cam, and it was a dandy one. There just isn't really anything wrong to start the game for John Lackey. Last time out against Miami, he struggled. There's no struggle at all that time. Just a good tight breaking ball nips the outside black.
Yeah, Mike, to your point, I mean, so yeah, you have to have the athleticism, you have to have the right players, and then it becomes a mindset within the clubhouse. I think that's where Maddon's influence kind of takes over, as it becomes cultural. So to have a young superstar talent like Chris Bryant just come out and say, we're a better defensive team with Baez, that's a rare thing. That's a very rare thing and a special thing for the Cubs.
Yeah, it's a long season, you know, and they're up by about 1 million games. You have to keep all these guys fresh. You have to keep them interested. And that's what he said when we did the thing the other night with the pitchers in left field. He said the infielders were laughing. They loved it. It woke everybody up in the 14th inning or whatever it was.
Arm angle a little bit below that fastball as it sails high to Travis d'Arnaud, 203, seeking his first long ball of the year. In the center field, he'll take a base hit for that matter.
I'll take it any way he can get it right now. He's been, they really need this guy's bat, you know, to catch fire the way it did last season. It just hasn't happened yet since he came off the DL. But in general, they're just not getting production out of their catchers. So any little bit counts.
Yeah, I was really surprised when I looked it up. He was excellent last year. 340 on base and 485 slugging. It's great. His issue has never really been talent. It's been injuries. He just has this litany of injuries. He's never been able to stay healthy. But if there's going to be internal improvement, you can't trade for 8 new players. He has got to be one of those guys who really steps up and catches fire and stays on the field.
Picked on a breaking ball that time, just hit it hard back into center field. Steven Matz is 5 of 24, so handles the bat well enough this year. He struck out 7 times. He's in the hole, no balls and 2 strikes. And that year last year for d'Arnaud was incredible.
They really have to make a decision soon, I think, whether he's going to be the guy for the next couple years. Because I think Plawecki's probably not more than a backup. I don't think he's got the bat for it. Do you go out and make a big trade for a Lucroy, or do you try to do something in the offseason? Because when you look at the list of injuries d'Arnaud's had, he's never been able to stay on the field consistently, dating back to when he was a minor leaguer in the Blue Jays system.
You're watching MLB Plus featuring StatCast, which is powered by Amazon Web Services. You saw that just a moment ago.
Yeah, the Mets OPS from their catchers, for the record, is 547. That's the worst in the major leagues. So Jonathan Lucroy has some appeal there, I think.
Count remains no balls and 2 strikes.
You can hear them yelling, let it go, let it go.
Mm-hmm.
I thought they were just singing Frozen songs there.
I like that.
See, I get the Game of Thrones jokes, but I don't get the Frozen jokes. So
you'll get there.
My daughters are old enough to get that for sure. There you go. It's an athlete behind home plate. You guys were talking about the ability of Contreras. We were talking about, certainly he's hit when he's come to the big leagues, but he can catch too.
Yeah, they have essentially replaced Schwarber with a guy who's similar to Schwarber, but is probably a little bit better on defense. Contreras, I think, can actually stay as a catcher. I don't think Schwarber ever is really going to catch again. Might not be the pure hitter that Schwarber is, but might be more valuable overall.
I remember in spring training, Miguel Montero saying that this kid's ready to catch at the big league level, and this is the guy who was going to lose his job.
Yeah, right.
He's ready to catch. So if he's admitting that, then I think there's some truth to it.
Contreras talked about whenever he could, or he'd go back and watch online, watching the Cubs pitchers pitch while he was in Iowa, watching their tendencies, watching the pitches that work, studying the pitches that they use, so that when he got to the big leagues, the learning curve was just easier for him to navigate. You got to give a young man credit for doing that.
Yeah, that's important, because that's always we're talking about this Jonathan Lucroy market right now, and that's going to be interesting because he might be thrust into a contending situation, and it's a lot harder than it sounds because you are learning an entirely new pitching staff on the fly. It's a difficult adjustment for everybody, and Lucroy's a terrific defensive catcher. I'm sure he can handle it, but it is tough.
Aggressive here from Nimmo. Nimmo never really caught fire in the minor leagues the way people expected he would, except in AAA. He actually, hit 405 on base and a 484 slugging. Part of that's because the Mets AAA team is in Las Vegas, which is basically like playing baseball on the moon. But there were some scouts were mentioning that he was starting to be more aggressive, not letting pitches go by. And we've seen that in his brief time in the big leagues so far. He's swung at 44% of first pitches. That's one of the 6 highest in baseball. We've seen it right here. And now I'm always in favor of being aggressive against a good pitch. You don't want to go after a lousy pitch, but sometimes the first pitch is the best pitch you're going to see.
It's a bouncing ball behind the bag, racing, a little tap dance on top of that bag. Fun to watch Baez play anywhere on the field. Really fun, and Lackey's been oh so good. We're talking about Chris Bryant and that night he had a couple of nights ago in Cincinnati. Ended up with 5 hits, had 3 home runs. Let's take a look back.
Now Chris Bryant. That will get into the left field corner. Hayward on his way to third. Trouble there for Duvall. Gary Jones is going to send him, and he will score. Throw to third. Late. Bryant in the air. Deep center. It will go. 2 for 2. 2 RBIs, and the Cubs lead again.
Number 19 for Chris.
That was bona fide.
That was bona fide.
Oh, baby.
Give me that read again, Andre. Give me a read. 4,972 feet. That ball went to Kentucky.
Even Straley's jaw just about hit the ground. A 3-run homer for Bryant. Another ball hit hard out into left center. He's going to try for 2, and he's going to be safe. He got in. Number 3. Full house time, baby. 9-7. I don't want no stinking cycle.
What a show. What a show.
Double homer, homer, double homer.
How about a curtain call on the road? Go ahead.
Welcome back to MLB Plus. I'm Madeline Burke, and don't forget to use the hashtag MLB Plus to join the conversation. Let's see what's going on in social media right now. First of all, it is the last day to vote for the MLB All-Stars this season, and Emily here has tweeted that she has done her duty as a loyal Cubs fan. She's voted the Cubs as many times as she could. We'll see if she gets a few into the All-Star game this year. Now, the Cubs have had a tremendous streak going on right now. They've had first-inning home runs in 3 straight games for the first time since 2012. Fun fact there from Christopher. And lastly, Uriel Gurieski, sorry about that, has worked out for the Mets. His agent has said he's going to sign in the next week or 2. Could be an interesting pickup for this team.
Interesting pickup for whoever picks him up. Trust me, that's not an easy name, Yulieski Gurriel. That's not an easy one at all.
We can't even settle on the spelling. You know, some
Yeah.
people say it's G-O-U, some people say it's G-U. I don't think anybody actually really knows the truth, and we won't until he signs. But he's got to sign soon, and he's got to be ready soon because he's already 32 years old. This is not a long-term play. This is a guy who needs to help someone immediately.
What do you think? I got to give a shout out to our own Jesse Sanchez because he was the first one to report the new spelling and claims that that's the accurate spelling. So he might have the scoop, not just on the signing, but
Which spelling are we going with?
Oh, just the U.
Just the U.
Yeah.
Okay.
So keep tabs on that.
Good fastball over the inside corner. Matt's again evolving as we watch this game. He's had at least a base runner in every single inning, but he just buried this one. This is a tough pitch for a left-hander to throw all the way to his glove side inside corner.
Yeah, I was real worried when he gave up that home run to Bryant. You know, after all the doom and gloom that came into this game, like, wow, this could be a short game. We might be going through bullpen roulette here. He's really, looked effective since then. He's made some nice pitches. That changeup's been good. And as we saw in the last inning, it's about the sequencing. He's getting a nice kind of flow. Here's where I'm going to put these pitches, and I'm going to finish you away with this. Even though he doesn't have the slider, even though the spin rate's been a little bit higher, he doesn't need to go 9 innings. He needs to get 6 good innings for the Mets here. Keep them in the game. Might not be enough if they can't score any runs, but that's he's doing his job so far.
You saw that drop down a moment ago, the changeup. I think that's been the key in this game. He followed it up with a fastball that, with good extension, looked 95 miles an hour to Addison Russell. Addison grounded out to short back in the second inning.
Remember, he did not strike out a single Atlanta Brave last week. He's got 6 whiffs already against a really, really good lineup.
Strikeout rate for this southpaw has been about league average. He's up a bit this year, but not dramatically at all.
Yeah, and he really doesn't, and I'm saying this as he just got a swing and miss, but he doesn't get a ton of swing and miss, but he gets a lot of foul balls, and I think you combine the two, the swings and misses he does get with the foul balls, and I think that helps him, get ahead of hitters.
Missed high with that one going back to our StatCast replay, the strikeout of Caesar a moment ago, powered by Amazon Web Services. Extension 6.8.
That's higher than usual, and the issue coming into the game was lower than usual because his quote, "I couldn't finish my pitches," and I read that as I couldn't really extend my arm as far as I wanted to.
Right.
To see him go the other way, obviously you don't want to see changes in any direction really, because that's the kind of thing that can lead to injury. But I think this is better than what we saw last week for certain.
Fastball in on the hands of John Lackey. 6 strikeouts, a pair of walks. He's just decided, I think, I'm going to have more of my power side on this play. Lackey drives it to right field. But there to make the plays, Nimmo. Brandon, the right fielder, puts it away. Gone 0 for 2. Always fun to watch. Albert Almora. The juice went at about, 107. A double to center field. I believe that was somewhere. Thanks for looking it up. Almora was 2 for 5 in the stop in Cincinnati. This is the replay powered by Amazon Web Services of that double.
You were right, Darren. 107 off the bat, and this is a guy who's known, I think, more for his defense and his hitting. So, this is Lackey we're looking at. But yeah, Almora's is 107, and even Lackey getting it out almost to the warning track for a pitcher.
Yeah,
you got to take that.
Almora playing in his 21st game this year. Breaking ball that's a little bit low. Chris Bryant, Javi Baez, Addison Russell, Albert Almora were all players that were prominent names as high schoolers. These were guys that were on the showcase scene, that were at Perfect Game National Showcases, were All-Americans, and guys who were playing on MLB Network before tonight. They're playing on MLB.com and MLB Network.
I thought it was a really cool story about Almora. You see the junior on the back of his jersey. His dad's fighting prostate cancer. And Clubby comes up to him and says, "Would you like to put Junior on your roster?" He's like, "I didn't know you could do that." So he did it as a tribute to his dad. I thought that was a really cool story.
Taking a look down that first base and right field line. This angle from the T-Mobile Greater Coverage Cam. I love that, Anthony.
He also wears number 5. And you would think an Albert wearing number 5 would have a certain Mr. Pujols in mind. But
it's a heck of a play by the shortstop Asdrubal Cabrera on a backhand on what I think we will find out was a hard hit ball with regard to exit velocity. Almora had one taken away. Otherwise, he would be 2 for 2. But a great play at short by Cabrera.
Yeah, he came real close to not getting it. I wouldn't be surprised if we see a replay there. But looks like a guy who missed by error. You're right, though. Nice play by Cabrera, who, as you mentioned before, is somewhat underrated, I think. He's he's not a star at shortstop, absolutely, but he's a perfectly competent, capable shortstop. And he's been a league average hitter. That's a valuable player.
Our news and notes from around Major League Baseball and a couple of key guys, big-time Western Division starting pitchers in the news for very different reasons. Clayton Kershaw, just to be safe with the discomfort there in his back. Talked about him traveling to have it checked out. He will go on the 15-day DL. It's not good news for the Dodgers. They only hope it's the 2-week span. Madison Bumgarner, who's a better hitter than many hitters, will drop the DH for that man tonight.
Yeah, I think that's fun. I think it's really cool to watch. I wonder what the bench players on the Giants think. The guys who might have gotten some plate appearances. But, certainly you can't argue with Bruce Bochy.
You know what I think they should think? I better hit better.
I guess so.
I need to hit better because you know what? If they were hitting better, it'd be an easy choice. Bumgarner's the best choice. And your thoughts on the Rodney deal? I know you're tracking a lot of movement as we head into July and the trading deadline, Anthony.
Well, Fernando Rodney is example number 1 here in 2016 of how you can never predict bullpen performance, because he had the abysmal 2015 and obviously turned it around in San Diego this year. Good for him. He goes from one pitcher's park to another.
Right.
And a Marlins bullpen that I think is fairly underrated as far as the power stuff that they can bring in the back end. I know the Cubs got a taste of that last weekend. So good ad for them.
Rodney in San Diego, just to finish your thought, 28 2/3 innings, 13 hits, 1 earned run, and 33 strikeouts. My goodness, having an amazing year. Yeah. Anthony Castrovents, Mike Pietriello, I'm Darren Sutton. We're glad you're spending time with us this evening. And out at the ballpark, Tim McMaster and Lindsey Berra, and our social media senior vice president, Madeline Burke. We're glad you're with all of us. So it's been interesting with regard to the Southpaw and watching Matz change things around. Looks pretty good.
Yeah, he does. He got off to that rough start by leaving that ball up, and Chris Bryant crushed it, but we've seen a lot of changeups, more changeups than he usually throws. He's kind of elevating the fastball, which normally wouldn't be a good idea, but since he's setting it up with the pitches low and then bringing the fastball up, it's a great strategy, and it's working well so far. And
that guy over our shoulder a moment ago now on your window is looked very good. Again. Neil Walker, Giannis Cespedes, and James Loney. 2, 3, and 4 for the New York Mets. Walker flied to center field back in the first inning.
Walker got off to an amazing start for the Mets. And as Daniel Murphy did so in Washington, I think the only reason that people weren't freaking out about it as far as Mets fans is because Walker was off to almost an equally good start. Hasn't really sustained. If you look at his first month, he slugged .625. That's incredible. And then he slugged .420, which is okay. And so far in June, .307 on base, .289 slugging. He's been 30 points below even league average. He's really kind of collapsed over the last 6 weeks or so. Some part of it's an evening out because he was never going to sustain what he did in the first month, but he is one of those guys that really needs to turn it around if this team is going to get back into contention just by hitting the ball.
Yeah, 9 home runs in April, 5 since. And you talk about evening out. You look at his rate stats, you look at his slash line now compared to 2015, it's almost identical. So they say in baseball, water finds its level. They say that all the time, and there's a great example of it. Had an absurd April and cooled off since.
Exit velocity of above 105 10 times this year. In those top 10, he is 8 for 10 with 4 home runs. We were sharing with you earlier, poor Jason Hayward as the exit velocity curse. He's had a tough year and a tough run of late, but as that curveball misses outside, Hayward in his top 10 exit velocities, that's 109 plus, is 4 of 10. 4 for 10. And the first 4, those are the 109 plus. He's 0 for 4.
It's unbelievable. I'd be surprised if there's another player like that. It probably means 2 things. He's hitting on the ground and he's hit for terrible luck.
Right. Yes, there's got to be some bad luck. People fight that bad luck thing, but that's bad luck. Anyway, Neil Walker is not experiencing any sort of thing.
Yeah, you look at Hayward's numbers. I'm just calling them up here, and he actually is hitting more line drives, fewer ground balls than he did a year ago in St. Louis. So to have the numbers he has, there is some bad luck in there, I'm sure. I don't know. That's one where you wondered about that contract because obviously so much of it was predicated on the elite defense you get. but if it doesn't come with some offense, it's a trouble.
Walker finds the hole past Javi Baez, took a dive, actually dove past the baseball that time. Neil Walker is 1 for 2. Cubs with a couple of runs in the first inning. If you've just hopped on with us, Chris Bryant with a 2-run home run. Yoenis Cespedes struck out back in the first inning. Competitive, I say so. John Lackey.
John Lackey, after that last game in Miami, we saw some of those replays where there was an infield hit and then Russell threw it away. And so the runner got the second, it was Suzuki. And John Lackey really was unhappy that was not marked as a 2-base error. You know, he said that should have been an error. I don't know why it was a hit and an error. And you don't really see a guy talking about, you know, his infielders like that saying, boy, I wish he'd gotten hit with more of an error. But it really didn't turn into much of a story. Probably because everybody knows that's the kind of guy John Lackey is, and also because the Cubs are the best team in baseball.
Yeah, that's John Lackey in a nutshell. I wish we could do like a slideshow of just John Lackey's reactions to getting taken out of games. I think that would make for a fun slideshow on MLB.com.
That had a little cut to it. That wasn't certainly the cutter per se, but good run away from the right-handed hitter in Cespedes. I think infielders aren't bothered because they know that on the days he's not pitching, he's on the top step fighting for their strike zone. And you know that, not to sound old school on you guys, but if they have to be taken up for, this is the guy that'll do it.
Well, I think we learned a lot. Honestly, I said this earlier. When we found out what he was pitching through in 2011, because this guy was getting hammered, absolutely hammered by the Boston media and by the Boston fans throughout 2011. And you find out he's pitching with the elbow injury he had. And what's also interesting about that is he could have shut it down mid-year, had Tommy John surgery, come back, you know, basically within a calendar year, pitched at some point in 2012. And he didn't, and there was a clause in his contract that if he missed an entire year, his last option year is for the Major League minimum.
Laced to right field and a fabulous play out there by Zobrist with the leap, and he hauls it in. Talking about exit velocity there.
So here's a guy who embraced that situation, knew the situation he's probably putting himself in, going to need surgery, and missed 2012, and then ended up honoring that contract and ended up being for the Cardinals at the Major League minimum.
Hey, 102 miles an hour off the bat, 354 feet. Pretty athletic play by Zobrist out there.
Right.
And it's tough. The Mets, they haven't had many guys on base.
Yeah.
Anyone they hit the ball hard, they're not getting any success out of it. They can't get anybody past first base. And when you're not hitting home runs, and that's what this offense was kind of built to do, is they score runs on home runs. A huge percentage of their runs are on dingers. We saw that in April when they were actually hitting home runs. When that doesn't happen, they really end up in some trouble. Obviously, injuries play a small part in that, you can see, because James Loney, who they had to dig out of El Paso a month ago, is their cleanup hitter tonight. No disrespect to James Loney, but it's not really what you planned for coming into the season.
Right. Yeah, he's not a cleanup hitter. I think we can all acknowledge that. And you're right, Mike, 51.8% of their runs this season via the home run. That's the highest percentage in the major leagues. So very boom or bust. And we've seen a lot of bust here in recent weeks.
Loney's actually played well for them.
Very much so.
Really, really good defense.
Yep. Yeah, good defender, and his bat had some life to it. Again, I mean, he's not going to, you know, he's not a Lucas Duda power type by any stretch of the imagination, but you take the total picture, he might even be an improvement over what they were getting from Duda, just when you add in the defensive value.
Yeah, what's interesting, though, is he's, for his career, always had huge platoon splits. He's never been able to hit lefties, even a little bit, but he's been above average against righties. What that means is when Duda comes back, it's a really awkward kind of combination for the both of them to coexist. In his favor, we don't know when Duda's going to come back. At this point, it doesn't seem like before August, and a lot can change by then.
Popped up, third base side. That one a high cut fastball. He got away with it. Loney just beat in with it. And he puts it away. Going back to the play by Ben Zobrist, just a quick thought, cheating on the numbers, which Mike gives you so well. I'm going to ask Mike what it means. First step, about 2/3 of a second, 0.666 seconds. 2/3 of a second on the first step for Zobrist going back to make that play.
It's pretty good, but it's one of those things that's complicated, right?
That's why I asked you.
There's no like right answer, because obviously you want it to be as low as possible, but it's not like a fastball where you could say, well, 98, that's obviously faster, it's better. there's a lot that goes into it because you can measure a first step on any play. You can measure his first step on a ground ball to third base, which isn't that interesting. So that's sort of the next step for that stat, is to just try to distill it down to what's only important for the guy when he's making the right play, or the play to him.
Route efficiency, 86.093. What does that mean?
Well, route efficiency means simply the direct route you take to the ball.
Got that.
If
What does the number mean then?
It's a little, most plays that are caught, I mean, it was even the worst Major League outfielder, there's still a Major League outfielder, right? Most plays are in the 90s. Most plays, I think, are probably above 95. It's really rare to see a successfully caught ball below 90. That means either the wind took it real in a weird direction or the guy got totally fooled. So that's actually not a great route efficiency.
Belted into left center field, letting it travel. Taking it the other way as Drupal Cabrera isn't out, though. On attack, continuing on the attack. 2-0, the Cubs on top of the Mets. The best of this week, StatCast, powered by Amazon Web Services, and it's always a fun week.
And that ball's hit well. Straight away center. Way back. And Upton will touch them all. Well, how about that? The two leadoff hitters homer here in the first inning. Upton with his 12th of the season. And that ties it at 1.
As soon as that ball hits that bat, that head is down. The extension of the arms, the power from the legs, like a cue ball off a tile floor.
High fly ball to center, and that ball's hit. Upton going back to the wall, home run. No, he pulled it back. He took it right off the wall. The throw back to first, a double play. Oh my! Melvin Upton has hit a home run and has now stolen one. That ball was over the wall on the backside, and Upton reaches over. And look at this catch.
Jerry, we're going to throw the star out there. Jesse's on it right now. That was a sensational, maybe the best by a Padre outfielder this entire season. What a play.
Down the left field line. Long run for Ashe and Galvis into foul territory, and Freddie makes a sliding catch. What a play. Oh, man. You want to talk about hand-eye coordination. Freddie Galvis, an outstanding defensive play for the first out here in the fourth. He almost overslid it.
So he did it in such a way, he went into such a smooth slide where that ball wouldn't bounce in the air on him. Very smooth.
Changing times for the Washington Nationals, obviously the run that they have been on since the start of the season, and specifically into summertime, and the New York Mets.
Yeah, this is the from our partners at Fangraphs, the probability of winning the National League East. And you can see it kind of went back and forth for the first 2 months or so of the season. But really, since the end of May, Nationals have really gone on a nice winning streak, and the Mets have gone straight downhill. You'll notice those numbers don't actually add up to 100. There's still a slight 4% or so chance that the Marlins could still come out of that division, which would be fascinating. But that says pretty much all you need to know about what's happened to the Mets over the last couple weeks.
Top half of the fifth inning, Cubs lead it by a score of 2-0. Ben Zobrist to lead things off. It's back to the top of the order, then Chris Bryant and Anthony Rizzo.
Could have pasted a picture of an iceberg there in late May in the middle of that graphic, I think.
Yeah, we would do one for the Cubs, but it really would just be at 100% the entire season.
Zobrist singled and scored back in the first inning, also popped up to second base. Good fastball, but it's called in and off the plate. Matt's still 25 years old, so while people long for help, should he find it, he's 25. The slider hasn't thrown too many. That's a fair ball. Uncomfortable swing by Zobrist. That slider surprised me. It was a good one.
Yeah, I hope
they're saying, I thought this guy only threw 2 sliders in his last 2 starts. What happened here?
Yeah, that's boy. I don't know. Is that the first one we've actually seen tonight? I know we said it before, and it was maybe a changeup, maybe a slider. You know, 87 miles an hour is pretty close to his slider. I mean, that's faster than his change in his curve. So I will buy that being a slider. Maybe he just wants to get like 1 or 2 in there to say, I did it. I still have it. It's still an effective pitch. 1 pitch won't hurt me.
Am I allowed to ask you, as soon as we get it, about the exit velocity of that one?
Sure. You can always ask me whatever you like. That was Zobrist, or is it not?
Zobrist, yes. Thanks for playing along.
I'm glad
I
you asked.
appreciate it.
35 miles an hour.
Got it. Got it. And the distance on that?
26 big feet.
I think they gave him quiet. I don't know. I don't know how that traveled 26 feet.
It's still speeding in a school zone at 35, but that's about it.
Yeah, this is a great major leaguer, so I'm sure he would have a little fun with it as well. Bryant grounds out to third. He is 1 for 3. He did have a 2-run home run back in the first inning, his 22nd of the year. Looking for his first clean inning. It won't be easy. Here's Anthony Rizzo, who is 0 for 2.
You know, Matt's threw a pitch earlier this game, 96.5. That is tied for the fastest pitch he's thrown all season long. Clearly, the elbow is not, as we mentioned, it's not affecting his velocity. He's actually throwing it a little harder than we've seen, which is not something you'd think you'd want to do if your elbow is barking and you're trying to pitch through pain. But he's been effective enough. You know, he might get through 5 innings with 2 runs. I think Mets fans have to be happy with that.
T-Mobile providing greater coverage of tonight's game from high above. Taking a look at the strike zone.
These guys are human.
Anthony Rizzo.
These guys are human, so you almost wonder if Matt is a little pumped up with that velocity tonight.
Crushed off the base of the wall by Rizzo, hustling on around. Into second he goes. He still hasn't had a clean inning, and that man still hasn't quieted down in quite some time, even against lefties.
Let me ask your opinion. Do you think Nimmo could have come down with that ball? It would have been a great play. I understand, but do you think he had a chance? Because Nimmo has been playing center field in the minors. He's had some, let's say, unconventional routes so far in the big leagues. He had one the other night that was a 77 route efficiency. He had one yesterday that was a 90 route efficiency. When we see this, I'm going to guess it probably wasn't ideal because he got himself all turned around on the play.
Yeah, watching it again there, I'm going to say catchable.
Runner at second for Wilson Contreras. Struck out, and he has walked. And he's in the hole 0-1. Wilson's 24 years old, out of Venezuela, signed by the Cubs as a free agent in July of 2009. First big league hit was a home run. He got a standing O as he walked to the plate for his first at bat at the ballpark. He rewarded them. He got another one.
They know them before they arrive in Chicago. Chris Bryant, of course, had the billboard. He had a billboard outside of Wrigley before his first major league at bat. It's prospect awareness is definitely a major change in the game in the last in this generation, I would say.
It was a mile high. He watched it for a moment, did Cespedes, and then scampers back. It was not Juan Lagares. Cespedes made the play, and he hauls that one in. 2-0, the Cubs lead it. Credit to that southpaw for the changes that he has made, and that center fielder for going back and getting it came down almost with ice on it. The Cubs love playing for Joe Madden. The city of Chicago loves Joe Madden. There's nothing he can do wrong, and Lindsey Berra had a chance to catch up with the veteran Cubs skipper before the game.
Joe, your starters have done their jobs really, really well, made every start. Nobody's missing any games, hurt, and now you sort of find yourself in this position where you want a sixth man to maybe give them some rest because they haven't been able to get it through other means. Is that luxury of having so many healthy pitchers become something of a little bit of a problem, maybe?
It's
like an interesting
right.
Regardless,
I still think it's wise to look to do that in the middle of the season. Kind of learned that with the Rays a couple years ago. We were going pretty good. We had Alex Cobb in the minor leagues, and so we popped Alex in there, which was easy to do because he was pitching so well. But whenever you could give your guys a little, and they're not going to want it. They're going to say they don't. I get it all. I understand it, but they do. And so if you could pop a guy in the middle right now, just give them that little extra day that really could promote or permit them to pitch more comfortably later in the season.
That's certainly an interesting subject when you see what the Cubs have done with regard to taking a look at ERA minus at 69. Of course, you want to be well below 100 if you want to be spectacular. It's historically spectacular since 1920. And just what they've been able to do. Lindsay, she's still with us, yes? Lindsay,
yes, sir.
Obviously, a change-up with regard to the rotation to throw 6 out there. You have young, talented pitchers. You've got a veteran who might use the break as well, who's pitching very well tonight. Did he expound upon it further after you talked with him about that?
I think, Joe, he said that he's actually done this before. He's looking at coming into the All-Star break. It's just a good time to give guys a rest. And I think as they were going at the beginning of the season, his guys who were all healthy and all making all of their starts and not getting any rest because they were hurt or for other reasons, they had some rain delays, they had some off days. But going into the All-Star break, they have 24 straight games and nobody's getting a rest. And I think he's looking at having the sixth man as a way to spell these guys who he's really going to need coming down the stretch.
It's a funny thing when you look at the Cubs because everyone talked about the signing of Ben Zobrist because Ben can play anywhere and that's great. Look, it's all of his teammates that can play anywhere. Baez is all over the place. Almora plays all three outfield positions. Chris Bryant can play in a bunch of spots. That kind of versatility really helps Joe Maddon.
It does, but we were talking about this before, about how much of that versatility really is Joe Maddon. He was talking about how he did it with Sean Figgins, with B.J. Upton, when he had guys in his minor league systems that he wanted to get to the big leagues in another way. And a lot of these guys have played different positions in their lives, and they get this thing into their heads, I'm a shortstop, I'm a third baseman. And Joe Maddon then asks the question, are you really? Can you play somewhere else? What if I need you to do this? And everybody trusts him, and he's not afraid to try it. And he just goes for it, and it's working. It's definitely paying back huge dividends.
It's a simple word, isn't it, Lindsay? Trust. It's a very simple word.
Yeah.
We all hope to have it in all of our relationships. He's got it in that clubhouse.
He absolutely does, and he's not afraid to try the stuff. The players aren't afraid to say, okay, yes, I'm willing to try, because he has so much confidence in them. And we all know, Joe Maddon has this guru status around baseball now, and his players see him every day, and they really just believe in him. And I think, if they said anything ridiculous he asked them to do, and this is not ridiculous, they would do it. They would follow him anywhere.
All right, thank you very much, Lindsay. We appreciate it.
The last time the Mets were at Citi Field, the first game of the series last summer was the famous Magician Day, where they were in their first real losing rut of that year, and he brought in the Magician. So obviously he always becomes the bag of tricks. And he's kind of a magician and distracting the storyline sometimes when things are going askew. He can change the storyline in a hurry.
I think she made a great point. He'll be able to take him down just about any road as long as it makes sense. It's travel clothing, it's playing other positions, and I think playing the other positions is a little bit different than what we're used to seeing. But then again, 10 years ago, so was shifting.
Yeah, and obviously he popularized that in Tampa Bay. And I remember, I don't know what year it was, but it was the first time you saw on a roster, it was like the Rays official roster, posted in visiting clubhouses, UTL next to Zobrist's name. And that popularization of the utility role and making it a real position, as opposed to pegging him as second baseman or right fielder or what have you.
Kelly Johnson walks to lead it off. Wilmer Flores, who struck out back in the third inning against John Lackey.
Flores has been red hot in June, by the way. 370 on base, 444 slugging percentage. Kind of the question is, you can't really expect Ray Munoz the next time he takes the field, if ever maybe. Is he the third baseman of the future, or is he just a placeholder until they can do better? I don't know that there are really going to be a lot of third basemen available. Maybe Danny Valencia seems like a good fit. You look at the other teams who are probably going to be sellers. There's not really a lot of third basemen, and I don't think anybody thinks Evan Longoria is available. What do you think? Is he the guy?
Well, I don't know. I mean, splits within splits there. The last couple weeks, his performance kind of trailing off a little bit, and you just kind of wonder. I mean, the guy's only 24 years old, Flores, so they still believe in his bat in the long term. But he's had such a weird career where never really having a set position for any length of time. Maybe you do let him settle in because you're right, Mike. I mean, there's not a whole lot out there. Escobar. You could buy low on Trevor Plouffe and hope his power plays. And obviously there's some hope or thought that Jose Reyes can come up and maybe make that transition. But I'm skeptical about that. Yeah. So
Gurriel maybe would be a good fit there.
And
I like Escobar though. That's a good name.
Well, and with Escobar and Gurriel, because Escobar's under control for next year, and Gurriel is obviously going to be a multi-year contract. So with either one of those guys, there's some admission there that not only are we not getting David Wright back this season, but we have some skepticism about what we're going to get from him in 2017 as well.
Speaking of third base, this is a heck of a play a moment ago by Chris Bryant. A diving stop on a laser beam, just kind of falling down, but falling down in the right area. Chris Bryant, the versatile Chris Bryant, playing at third for the 50th time this year.
Yeah, 104 off the bat. So Flores got all of that. Really nice play by Chris Bryant.
Travis d'Arnaud with that slightly open stance, hands away from his body. No shot at that breaking ball. He's in the hole 0-1 the count to Travis. Singled back in the third inning.
You know, that play by Bryant, it allows you to see that the Cubs defense has really been, I think, almost underrated. You talk about the offense, obviously, guys up and down crushing the ball. The pitching rotation, we just showed the stat that they are historically relevant, but the defense has been really, really good. I mean, this is a Cub team that is built to win in every single way. They're good on offense, on defense, running, on fielding. You know, what's their need? They could probably use a lefty reliever. Well, who couldn't use a lefty reliever except for the Yankees, right? If that's their biggest need, then that is a team that is really, really built well.
d'Arnaud, first-round pick of the Philadelphia Phillies. Supplemental pick, 37th overall in 2007. Out of California's Lakewood High School, and of course he's been traded for the likes of Roy Halladay and R.A. Dickey along the way through his career. That man has been taketh away many base hits of late. And so many Chris Bryant did last year. Explosive hits, power hits as that breaking ball misses outside.
So I have a bold proposal. So obviously there's this close battle at third base between Chris Bryant and Nolan Arenado. We're waiting for the final starters to be announced. That's a great play there. Final starters to be announced next week. If Bryant has more votes than the third place outfielder, can we put Arenado at third base and put Bryant in left field at the All-Star game?
I would be in support of that, but I don't know that I see it happening. And even if you did that, Matt Carpenter would still have a case. But where am I? And Jake Lamb would still have a case. From where am I? At third base. I wrote about this a couple months ago. It's almost historically great right now. There's so much talent at third base in both leagues.
Third base production across baseball. I believe you've written about this, or it's kind of in this golden age of third base production, and it's even, last I looked, relative to first base, the third base production was on a weighted runs created plus scale was higher than at first base.
Especially with power. Yeah. The guys in the NL we just talked about, and then you've also got Donaldson and Machado and Evan Longoria and plenty of guys in the American League too. It's really been a long time since we've seen third base this populated full of talent.
3-2 the count. Bottom of the fifth inning. Our StatCast powered by Amazon Web Services. The replay. 104 off the bat.
That ball at that launch angle and exit velocity tends to be a hit about 66% of the time. And this kind of goes back to what's ailing the Mets is they're not a great hitting team right now, and even when they are, they don't get any luck out of it.
2 walks in the inning.
I think Flores had a great route efficiency back to the dugout on that line drive. Just
Yeah.
the exit velocity off the bat combined with the quick catch, it was a beeline straight to the dugout.
What's interesting, just a quick education, it's very simple, obviously, folks. If you're just watching this for the first time, we talked about the play Zobrist made in right about 2/3 of a second. You can't get away at third base for 2/3 of a second. Simple math, and that was 0.2 of a second there for a step on that one.
That's right. And I'm gonna note your very smart comment there, but I have to register a complaint. And the only reason I'm doing this is because it's relevant to the situation right now. Steven Matz is hitting here, right? 2 men on, Mets are down by 2. Steven Matz is hitting with 1 out. You don't think you're going to get that much more out of a guy who've been talking about his elbow nonstop, but they have they have only 3 guys on the bench because Granderson can't hit.
He's hitting, and he didn't like what just happened. A pitch that was over his head to his helmet. Lackey even explained, and John does this a lot. John lowers the arm angle, and because of that, it slips right there. There's no reason for that to occur. Matz didn't like it.
There's a small part of me that thinks that anybody who tries to bunt should be thrown out anyway, but clearly no intent there by John Lackey. I mean, she's trying to give you the out. You take the out. There's absolutely no ill will intended there.
Dude, I like it. You're bringing the soapbox to this at bat. Watch Matz again.
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't be pleased either. That ball goes over my head. So what are you doing? I'm trying to bunt. I'm trying to give you an out. I'm helping your team by giving you an out here. But going back to the strategy of it all, let's say this works. Then you have 2 outs with Nimmo up. That's if you didn't have such a short bench, maybe you could put in a pinch hitter here. Maybe you get a base hit. Maybe you're not giving up one of your remaining outs because the best case scenario is Matz pitches 1 more inning, maybe. And how many times have you seen it where he gets 1 guy on the next inning and Terry Collins is going to come out and yank it?
Yeah, it's combination here with the short bench and the beleaguered bullpen, both probably combine in Terry Collins' mind here to let him swing away or bunt away, as it were.
3-0 the count. And the Nats, it is 3-1. He struck out back in the third inning. Obviously, defensively, the Mets done what they wanted to do tonight. The Cubs are doing exactly what they want to do, playing this bunt defense. He's swinging away. It's a high fly ball. That went to left center field to the wall and a little litty leap there. I'm not quite sure what that was, but Almora made the play. Tagging and heading to third was Kelly Johnson. That's twice Almora's done that tonight, and Mats gave it a ride.
So that was fun to watch, but arguably less effective than the bunt because the guy in first didn't make it to second.
Right. Stop ruining all my fun, Mike.
He took that for a ride. I mean, no doubt about that. And you can see here, opposite field too. Oh, no, opposite. Sorry, dead center. But you're right. A little bit of a weird kind of route, and then that jump that didn't really need to be a jump by Almora. Crowd liked it anyway.
Twice he's done that. I like that point.
Off Bumgarner's bat, that is gone. Just a little more thump.
That had to be over 100 miles. It looked like it was 100.4.
Well, I have it here as 99.2.
I'm disappointed with that number. Matt's disappointed with the result. We saw the replay there as reaction. Nimmo drops that back shoulder and hits it a mile high. Baez in foul territory puts it away, so there's all sorts of noise. You can still hear it.
Almost as if the Mets struggle with runners in scoring position.
To a historical extent. But you can't give away opportunities like that against the Cubs. I mean, you can't.
A really, really high launch angle there. That's not certainly ideal. I'm going to put it together, and as we've been educated, somewhere up and above 25, maybe to 35, and put something on it. We've talked about it a lot. Let's teach you a little bit more about launch angle.
Launch angle is a measure of the vertical angle of a batted ball, indicating whether the ball was hit on the ground or in the air, and beyond that, to what extremes. A launch angle of 0 degrees would be right back at the pitcher's release point, and that means negative numbers are possible, indicating ground balls. Roughly 10 degrees to 25 degrees are where line drives live, and fly balls are between 25 degrees and 50 degrees. The sweet spot, so to speak, for launch angle is between 25 and 30 degrees, a narrow band straddling line drives and fly balls that accounted for 35% of all Major League home runs in 2015. Similar to exit velocity, launch angle is by itself a very useful tool in identifying the type of batted ball that was hit, but combining the two is vital in truly understanding batted ball distance. Let's show 3 batted balls from 2015 that were all hit at an identical 100 miles per hour, but with hugely different results. Seattle's Nelson Cruz hit a ball off Houston's Colin McHugh at 100 miles per hour at a 30-degree launch angle, right within the ideal 25 to 30-degree sweet spot. 424 feet later, it was well beyond the left field wall. But while it's definitely possible to hit a home run at 100 miles per hour, it requires the right launch angle. Texas's Mitch Moreland also hits a ball at 100 miles per hour, but at a 50-degree launch angle, right on the border between a fly ball and a pop-up. In the other direction, Philadelphia's Ryan Howard had his own 100-mile-per-hour batted ball, but since it had a launch angle of just 10 degrees, it became a 4-3 groundout.
Hitting it hard, exit velocity, the proper launch angle. Nomar Mazara of the Texas Rangers hit the furthest home run of the year, more than 491 feet. Exit velocity, almost 108. Launch angle, Mike, just below 27.
Yeah, and it was also a windy day that day, and all environmental factors really matter a lot in distance. But launch angle, it's really interesting because it's you can hit the ball as hard as you want, but if it's straight up or straight down, it doesn't matter. It's got to be a combination of those two things. You really want to hit it hard, and on the a 20 to 25 to 30 degree launch angle, that's where you're going to get your best hits.
No balls and 2 strikes to count on Javi Baez. Good changeup getting a swing and a miss. The count is 0-2. He threw him another one down and away. Uber aggressive, but Baez has managed to bottle up that aggression this year and certainly used it a lot more to his success. Swing and miss rate has come way down, nearly half the time. 4 out of every 10 his first season. It's down to about a quarter of the time now.
Yeah, and if you just look at percentage of plate appearances he's struck out in, 41% to 30% to 21%. So cut in half. As I said, Kyle Hendricks the other day, this is a quote from Kyle Hendricks, he's got the best baseball instincts I've ever seen, speaking about Javi Baez, and that is incredibly high praise.
1-2 the count, drops his back shoulder, hits it a mile high to left field, back to the wall, and Javi did it. Launch angle, exit velocity, it's the perfect mix. Great baseball instincts as well, and the Cubs add another. They lead it 3-0 for Baez. That's his 8th home run of the year. My goodness.
He does have great instincts. He said, I think we could use another run here, so I'm going to supply it right here.
Unfortunately, the Mets didn't have a pinch hitter last time.
Going a mile high. You saw the launch angle at just below 41.
Oh, moonshot.
Exit velocity well over 100.
Yeah, 101.6 miles an hour. And yeah, a very, very high angle for a home run.
That's frustrated with himself. Mike, you were on that subject matter a half inning ago. We like to call that first guessing.
Yes. It's nice when it's right and not immediately proven wrong.
Well, if you think it, you may as well say it. 0 for 2 for Matt Caesar. 2 for his last 22. Now that'll change. Base it into right field. Ball in on his hands. Let it travel way to the back foot and just served it into right field. Back-to-back base runners for the Cubs.
And 98 pitches for Matz. I cannot imagine they're going to let him go too much deeper into this game. I have to assume, we can't see the bullpens from our vantage point, that somebody is out there starting to warm up.
StatCast replay of that home run just a moment ago for Javi Baez, powered by Amazon Web Services. Just about 371 feet. Not a ton of home runs at 40 degrees or above, correct?
Nah, really, that's almost a pop-up angle. You have to hit the ball really, really hard to get it out at that kind of launch angle. You know, going back to that last inning where we talked about Mets, I don't actually blame Terry Collins for that because he's got a short bench. He's got the backup catcher and Matt Reynolds, who's a rookie, who's not much of a hitter, and De Aza, who's been one of the most ineffective hitters in baseball this year with Granderson out. Not much Terry Collins could have done. It's just that he was kind of put in that situation by not having a full bench. I think he was kind of limited in what he really could have done.
Yeah, of course, the Granderson thing playing a big role there. And it just feels like the Mets have been caught in that situation frequently this year. I think of a few games where they kind of went into a game with a short bench situation. It's just been among the pile of frustrations here in 2016.
Yeah, you really handcuffed him. And it sounds like they are going to rush Juan Lagares back, maybe as soon as tomorrow. And maybe that means one of the extra pitchers goes down. Maybe that means they can no longer wait for Granderson and he goes on the DL. And if so, that won't really change things too much because it'll be 1 in, 1 out. But changes are coming.
Breaking ball is low to Addison Russell. Russell goes back to heading into his senior year in high school. So when he really made some changes. Pensacola, Florida area, Pace High School. He was part of the Tournament of Stars, which just wrapped up for USA Baseball as they whittle it down to 40, and then they will whittle it down to a 20-man roster between the time he played in the Pan Am Games, which obviously heads into the fall when you're heading to play internationally. And of course the June summertime when he was at Tournament of Stars, they challenged him with some things to do. You're going to be on our 40-man. We want you to make the 20-man. We want you to go to Pan Am with us, or I should say play in the Pan Am Games with us. And he dropped close to 30 pounds in that time. Really changed his body, changed his physique, and it's never gone back. Cleaning up the base pads for the Cubs, and that'll help at least a little bit ease the burdens. Not a bunch, but Matz does a nice job holding runners.
You know, it's not the kind of thing that Matt Caesar can get away with, because the Cubs have a lot of injured guys coming back. You know, Listella is going to be back, Soler is going to be back, and they have really too many guys for the roster. He is probably the 25th man on the roster. He's not the kind of guy who can do that.
Well, he knows the way to Iowa.
Yeah,
he rode
right.
that train 7 times last year up and down between Iowa and Big.
Nice pick up from the Mets. With Addison Russell at the plate here, I don't generally believe in reverse platoon splits, but he's got some of the weirdest reverse platoon splits I think I've ever seen. Obviously, he hasn't been in the big leagues that long. Just drew a walk. I think he walked earlier, so that's going to invalidate everything we're about to say. But against lefties for his career, 252 on base, 288 slugging. He's a right-hand hitter. Against righties, 336 on base, 422 slugging. Really, really weird.
And you know they know. You know the staff knows. You know he works on it. The simple-minded baseball person, my first thought is just over-aggression, because if you're losing that front side against the lefty, you're just not going to be able to do what you want. This lefty has headed back, and he retired no one. He did pick up an out with what ended up being a caught stealing. Made some adjustments when he needed to, but it was an inning in which they did not hit for him, as Mike pointed out earlier, and he heads back to the dugout, costing the Mets another run, and they lead it by a score of 3-0. So the Mets, I guess, Anthony, they got a little bit of depth as they make the call to the bullpen. They needed more, but they got just a bit of help tonight.
Yeah, it has to be a frustrating hour for Mets because we talked about it. The changeup was working for him at times. I think he did show really legitimate strides tonight in pitching with this condition, but 2 big mistakes. And this is kind of the undercurrent to everything going on with the Mets right now is their pitchers have no wiggle room to make those mistakes. So it's tough on everybody. You know, he's pitching through this elbow situation and knowing the support is going to be tough to come by, especially against Lackey, the way he's throwing. So difficult outing for Mets.
Eric Goodell comes on for the 7th time this year. Seldom used. Now he gets a chance to eat some innings. Tim McMaster, by the way, hold that thought, Mike, is our greater coverage T-Mobile reporter. And he's giving us a bit of a tour of Citi Field, I would imagine, on a night in which the ballpark has some pretty good energy in it, trying to get this team going again. Well, what are you finding out there?
Yeah, thanks a lot, Darren. You know, obviously the main event here at Citi Field is the Mets and the game on the field, but there's plenty of other stuff to do beyond the game, other games around this park, and that includes the Fan Fest area at Citi Field. You see the miniature field they have out there, players taking some cuts out there. Then you can play video games. You would hope, you know, play video games at home, come to Citi Field, play them on the big screen, and of course, everybody loves the dunk tank, especially when the person that you're dunking is actually wearing a Cubs jersey, so that makes it even more fun. So lots of stuff. There's also batting cages, guys, out there. You can meet Mr. Met. Obviously, always fun to do that. So plenty to do around the ballpark besides the actual game on the field. The one thing lacking out there, though, guys, as you see that field again, that miniature field, no StatCast information. I was trying to get some exit velocity, maybe some projected distance, but I couldn't find anything.
Well, you can really make it up at that point, and the kids will believe you. So tell me hit about 200 miles an hour at a perfect launch angle, and they'll be pleased.
Thank
yeah,
you,
well, they do. The one place you do get some stats, guys, is on the dunk tank. They tell you how hard you threw the ball there. So I saw some 35s, some 36s, so keep an eye on those kids.
Thank you, Tim McMaster. We appreciate it. Bringing us the ballpark, bringing it alive, our T-Mobile, I should say, greater coverage reporter at Citi Field.
Yep. Not sure if that's perceived velocity from the dunk tank's perspective.
Eric Goodell, the right-hander, the UCLA alum out of San Mateo,
that
California.
Was pure nonsense right there.
That one is popped foul and looking to lay it down, John Lackey. These are the pitches that Eric Goodell uses.
Yeah, mostly four-seamer. The changeup, it's almost kind of a split change, which is easily his biggest out pitch. He gets 27% strikeouts on that pitch and uses it 27% of the time. It's really the fastball when the hitter is ahead, the split change when he's ahead, and the curveball just to keep him honest.
Until I looked today, I actually forgot this guy got into Game 3 in the Division Series last year.
Right. Yeah, that's right.
He didn't retire any of the 4 batters he faced, gave up a home run to Adrian Gonzalez, but it was a 13-7 game. Kind of got lost in the shuffle there. The Mets won, but did not make the LCS roster after that. But a depth bullpen piece for them all the same.
Well, that is a good-looking breaking ball, and it's bunted foul, and Lackey goes down on strikes. The one thing, too, that Goodell has done in his brief time in the smaller usage back in the big leagues, he has pumped in first pitch strikes 3/4 of the time. League average about 6 out of 10. Anything better you like out of a reliever, the first pitch strikes, good ones, misses. Tough breaking ball to play. Opponents against Goodell in his career hitting 194 against him with an on base of 267.
This is the guy who's a 24th round draft pick, has already had 3 elbow surgeries, including Tommy John surgery. So, even the fact that he's here kind of doing some mop-up duty is a success story, I think, for a 24th rounder with some arm health history.
Well, the game has evolved, hasn't it? That the guy doing mop-up duty throws 93.
Yeah, it certainly has. I've been covering baseball, consistently since 2003, and the amount of change just in that time is staggering. And we see the numbers all the time. Just the pure number of pitches, 95 plus now. It's absolutely insane.
We talked about this after Lucas Giolito made his debut the other day. He was throwing, 93, 94, 95. It's like, oh, is that all? Kind of thought he'd do better than that.
You're spoiled. 3-0, the Cubs on top of the Mets. Chris Bryant with the long ball. He's 22nd of the year. Our T-Mobile greater coverage cam showing us the lead at first base. Addison Russell from in the right field corner. Right into that batter's box.
Then just to bridge off this point, then we're seeing this home run spike this year, and there's all kinds of theories why it is, and even some conspiracy theories, but I don't know if some of that is just bat speeds catching up now as a result of being more groomed to this, but we're seeing some extreme velocities and extreme exit velocities. I don't know if they work hand in hand but the home run, ever since the middle of last season, home runs have really jumped.
My theory, I think, in part, is that some teams are just saying, swing harder. We'll accept the strikeout. Like Tampa Bay, I think, absolutely. They've been so much more aggressive, and they've been hitting a lot more home runs. I think that's what it is for them.
Breaking ball hit on the ground. And a nice job cleaning things up. Very solid work for Goodell. But a long ball in the inning. Off the bat of Javi Baez. Fun to watch that young man play. He's got 8 home runs this year. On MLB Plus tonight, the Chicago Cubs on the road, leading it and doing so by a score of 3-0. Then again, the Cubs have Joe Madden's squad done a lot of winning. Since 2010, the Cubs are 26-13 in the regular season in this rivalry. We know last year went to the Mets in a 4-0 sweep. Betcast powered by Amazon Web Services. Mike Anthony, here's that home run for Baez.
Yeah, look at how high that is. A launch angle of 40 degrees. That's why that ball didn't go as far as you'd think, because it went straight up.
And you watch that replay, if you didn't know it, you'd think that was a pop-up.
Right, right.
From that angle.
Yeah, I'm going to have to look that up. I don't think it's the highest home run we've ever had, but I'm guessing it's up there.
John Lackey started this ball game. And John Lackey has been very, very good. Lackey, we talked about it last time against Miami, went into the 5th inning, 4 1/3, but allowed 7 runs. He had gone a streak of 10 consecutive starts where he was outstanding, a sub-2 ERA. He's found his way again. Steven Matz kind of had to find his way, look for a light switch in the dark. That's what I liken it to. And he kicked some corners of the tables along the way, but in the end, it was a very workmanlike effort from Matz. One of those that you maybe wanted a little bit more length, but he gave them, I think, what you might have thought you'd expected. Maybe even more than what you thought, Mike.
My expectations, if we're being honest, is that he'd been out by the 3rd inning. So I think he's not going to be happy about it because he gave up some home runs and he left that inning, with men on, didn't really get, except for the pickoff, didn't get any outs in that last inning. But I think if you're the Mets and the fans, you probably have to be okay with what you saw. He had really good velocity. We saw that changeup was a really effective secondary pitch. He came back from that 1st inning home run and shut the Cubs down for the next couple innings. It's probably likely going to go on on his ledger as an L, but I think there's a lot of positives to take away from this for Mets.
Neil Walker to lead things off. Still just a 3-0 game. They're looking for base runners against Lackey, looking to get something started. John had a clean first, a clean second. There have been base runners in the 3rd, 4th, and the 5th for the Mets. Hitters now working their way through the third time through the order. Neil Walker singled in the fourth, flied to center in the first.
Yeah, the 3 hardest hits for the Mets today are batted balls. Only one of them was actually a hit. And I think that goes a little bit to luck. We saw that great play by Bryant. John Lackey might be throwing the quietest 2-hitter we've seen in some time here.
Pittsburgh's first-round pick, 11th overall in 2004, local product, Pine Richland High School in the suburbs. Since he made it to the big leagues and has done his way, he has found himself with regard to weighted runs created plus at his position, just shy of guys like Pedroia and Cano and Zobrist, Altuve, but not far behind. He's right there with that group in the back end. 113 since 2011, weighted runs created plus for this second baseman, Neil Walker, who's 30 this season. He hoped he might get a ground ball with that two-seam fastball. The arm was underneath it. Instead, it was lifted high above foul territory, and the play put away by Rizzo.
Yeah, Lackey's had some really impressive extension. He's getting over 7 feet on a lot of his batted balls, and what that really means is he is choosing that he wants to pitch from 53 feet away from home plate. You know, no one throws from 60 feet. He gets out in front. It limits the amount of time the ball has to get to the plate, and it's really helped him. We've seen some pitches, impressive perceived velocity.
Yeah, a lot of weak pop-ups tonight for the Mets lineup against Lackey.
We're talking about those couple of years for John, which he pitched hurt, 10 and 11, and which he gave up 233 runs in 2 seasons combined. An ERA of over 5 and 61 starts, a whip of 1.504. And the journey back, it's been fun to watch this last couple of seasons.
Yeah, I had my questions about this, this signing, because you knew he wasn't going to repeat 2015 in St. Louis. That was such an outlier for a guy his age with his stuff. But give him credit, man. He's, the rough one the other night in Miami, one of only 3 starts this season that weren't quote-unquote quality starts. He's delivered for them in a big way, and he's a guy with that postseason pedigree as well once they get there.
Oh, baby. Deep left field. Wow. Into the third deck.
That's what you call the Castro curse right there. I talk about a guy as he serves up a moonshot.
That was an absolute blast.
19 on the year for Cespedes. We can't wait for these numbers to come in. Well over 400, probably close to 450 feet. You see it drop down on your screen, an exit velocity of 110 for Yoenis Cespedes. Again, Mats has kept them in the game.
What was your guess on feet? Well, you just said it. What did you think it was?
Well over 400, 420?
440.
440.
440. 110 miles an hour at 32-degree launch angle. I mean, that is a sweet spot. I bet you if I looked it up, that 99% of those balls are home runs.
Loney is on the move. That one goes into the corner. That's his extra base specialty, not a home run guy, but he can hit some doubles. James Loney, guess which ballpark is alive right now?
The Mets are showing some life. It's about time. Now, fortunately for them, that home run came with nobody on base.
Well, and this is the telling moment now. The runner in scoring position.
7 doubles for Loney since coming to the big leagues with the Mets.
I know we're not exactly putting much weight on batting average in this conversation, this broadcast, but the Mets are 9 for their last 73 of runners in scoring position, a 123 average. That got me thinking.
That sounds bad.
The last 2 years, Bartolo Colon is 11 for 84 at the plate, so he's batting 131. So it's been the statistical equivalent of worse than Bartolo Colon when they get in these situations.
Bartolo Colon, noted power hitter.
Noted power hitter, of course, but
One long ball just a moment ago. Let's power it. Amazon Web Services, the StatCast look.
441 feet. That's the third deck. It is, well, maybe the second deck. It's really rare that you see a ball hit that far in the park. You're going to hit the ball 110 miles an hour. Good things are going to happen as long as you don't hit it straight up or straight down. You have a launch angle of 32, and you can always say in the sweet spot's roughly 25 to 30. I mean, that is just perfection.
That reminded me a lot
high and out of the zone of Cabrera.
It reminds me a lot of his home run in the division series last year against the Dodgers. I think went right about that spot. I remember the priceless reaction from Chris Rock.
That's right.
It became a popular GIF after that one. GIF, whatever.
Well, we're gonna have to have words because our producer Chris Karen says GIF, and it's GIF, but that's a long
I'm just a
conversation.
big peanut butter fan,
day.
so I lean towards GIF.
Cabrera loads that back leg up on that lead foot toe, and time is called. Statcast replay of James Loney's double right here, powered by Amazon Web Services.
And that is the prototypical Loney ball. Right? He's not really a power hitter, but when he's right, he's roping doubles down the line like that. He's done that for a really long time.
Pitch missed low, 2-1 to count. Great shot a moment ago, by the way, the home run by Cespedes, and the Mets' true helmet butler is Asdrubal Cabrera. He has taken the art of being a helmet butler, and fortunate for him, he was about to hop out on deck. He loves being the guy that helps you off with your helmet after your homer. Like Dusty Baker made the high five popular in the 70s. He has made that a very popular role in the dugout. The psychologist in me says that's a very selfless thing to do. Probably being a good teammate. Crowd's got me into it, boys, a little bit. Actually trying to quiet the crowd with a pitch like that. Yikes.
It's a real nice pitch. I'm just happy to see the Mets showing some life. They've been so quiet for really weeks now.
A little bit of run in, a little bit of cut to it at 91 miles an hour. Well, he's a man of many arm angles, Lackey.
For most pitchers, that would concern me. But, that's really his game. He's throwing the entire kitchen sink at you, except he's doing well, throwing 94 miles an hour. Unsurprisingly, that Cespedes home run, the longest home run by any Met so far this season.
These are the situations, folks. Anthony was talking about it. This team hitting .205 as a team, on base of .286, and a slug of .321 with runners in scoring position. A historically low number. The 1981 strike-shortened Mets hit .210 with runners in scoring position. Prior to this year, the lowest since 1974, since that has been taken.
That's not great.
There it is. Second out of the inning, runner moves to third.
Yeah, just the context of the way their week has gone. They need to cash in right here. They need a base hit bad.
Kelly Johnson will have that opportunity. He walked in the fifth. He flied to center field.
You see, this is the kind of situation that the Mets just have not been able to cash in. I mean, the stats we've been talking about, and here it is. This is going to be a flyout to end inning.
I mean, was that the Mets offense in one inning, or was it not? They get the run and the home run,
right?
And don't cash in with runners.
That's exactly right.
Not needing to go to the bullpen just yet. Lackey has been his own bullpen a lot lately, but Jim Duquette joins us, and he talks about the evolution of the Cubs bullpen right now in 16.
The Cubs bullpen has been, I think, surprisingly good overall when you look at it and the parts of it. And their ERA, as you look at it at this point in the season, is top 10 in Major League Baseball. And a big part of it has been the success over the last two seasons of Hector Rondon at the back end. He's been lights out for the most part as their closer. But it has balance, it has versatility, it has length to it as well. You look at the guys from the left side, certainly have been very consistent, whether it's Clayton Richard or Travis Wood. Both, and Wood in particular, can give you multiple innings, but they have been very effective. Adam Warren in the middle has been a guy that can give you multiple innings as well. Has been very good, maybe as a swing starter also. And then it comes down to Trevor Cahill, who we know is no longer starting, but pitching very well, effectively as a middle reliever. Good sinker ball, leading up to Pedro Strop and Hector Rondon. And if there's one area that the Cubs could really improve upon is in that bullpen, the back end. And I think a guy like Andrew Miller would be a perfect fit for the Cubs. It meets the criteria that Joe Madden likes to have, those versatile guys who can pitch in the 8th, can pitch in the 9th, could co-close with Rondon. It's not going to disrupt their overall chemistry, not going to disrupt their overall roster. Look for the Cubs to be aggressive in that area, in particular Miller, if the Yankees decide to sell.
Welcome back to MLB Plus. I'm Madeline Burke, and remember, join us tonight. Interact with the conversation using hashtag MLB Plus, and we may feature your tweets here in the broadcast. Now let's get a looking at around social media tonight. First of all, Scott says, hey, except for Chris Bryant in the first, Mats did a pretty good job keeping the Cubs in check. And, you know, he only gave up 7 hits over 5 1/3 innings. Not too bad. And despite the struggles, Mets fans are having some fun with it. Fred says, I've been finding Nimmo in right field. I see what you did there. Now, speaking of offense, Cespedes has stepped up, and he says, hey, that's number 19 for All-Star hopeful Yoenis Cespedes. He hit a bomb out there. People don't hit balls there. Well, you know what? Cespedes does. And hey, All-Star voting ends tonight at 11:59. He may have earned your vote right there.
All-Star voting, and Cespedes, with regard to the outfielders and where he stands, it'll be interesting to see how it all ends up. Are you voting?
I've already voted as many times as I've been allowed to. Can I say I'm pleased that Fred there realized his joke was lame and apologized for it right up front. So I like that self-awareness. As far as Cespedes goes, I mean, there's no doubt that he is one of the best 3 outfielders in the National League. He's probably going to get the most votes when all is said and done. And you can see here, those are 3 pretty good choices at the top. Obviously, you see Cubs everywhere, but Dexter Fowler actually has been outstanding. I can't argue that in the least. I will say, once you get past the top 3, there's some. I want to see some Pirates there. I want to see Polanco and Marte. I want to see Marlins. I want to see Ozuna. I want to see Christian Yelich. You know, I don't know that Jason Hayward and Jorge Soler really deserve to be up there, but the top 3
does, right?
Braun's actually had a really good year.
Yeah.
He won't make the All-Star team. I think Jonathan Lucroy will for Milwaukee, but he has actually had a really bounce-back year. He has regained trade value, which I think is something that would have been hard to believe a year or 2 ago. But as far as that top 3 goes, Fowler, Harper, Cespedes, good job, fans.
There's the voting.
Cubs everywhere.
There's a lot of
so many Cubs. And most of those Cubs are Zobrist, Rizzo, Bryant. Who can argue with that? Addison Russell. There's too many good shortstops in the National League. Seager, Story, Diaz. I don't know about that one.
Yeah, that's the one that frustrates me, just the way Seager has come along. And his voting totals come along as well. So maybe he'll get a huge late surge.
Zobrist goes down on strikes. Zobrist singled and scored in the first inning in front of Chris Bryant's home run. Bryant with the long ball's 22nd of the year. And we'll grab the inside corner. Good tight breaking ball. By the way, Bryant with that 22nd home run. Before it's July, obviously, the highest since Derek Lee got there back in 2005. So it's been 11 seasons. First Cub to get to that 22 mark before July.
Yeah, last year he had 26 homers and 650 plate appearances. This year he's now got 22 home runs in, let's say, 342 plate appearances. That is a big difference, and the strikeouts are down. Power up, strikeouts down from a guy who already had a great season and is a plus defender now at a couple spots. That might be the National League MVP right there.
Yeah, we were talking recently about the way the NL MVP was trending, and maybe Kershaw is the guy that, you know, that transcended starting season. Now he goes on the DL, and the week Bryant has had, maybe that conversation is changing in a hurry.
Yeah, it would have been Kershaw. My vote would have been Kershaw before he got hurt. Now to see how long he's out for. People are going to say the Cubs are going to split the votes because Rizzo's going to get some votes, Bryant's going to get some votes, and Zobrist is going to get some votes. Yeah, Harper has really kind of taken a downturn. I don't know if he's in that conversation anymore. It's going to be really interesting to see at the end of the year.
3-1 is the score. By the way, you're watching MLB Plus, and it's featuring StatCast, which is powered by Amazon Web Services. 2 outs in the inning. Rizzo doubled back in the 5th. Grounded out a couple of times, pulling it, and now he digs in against a right-handed pitcher.
Look at him right on top of the plate there. And we know he gets hit by pitches all the time. Last year, he had the first ever 30-30-30 season. Home runs, doubles, and hit by pitches.
He's been hit 11 times this year. And on base percentage is at .407 coming in.
Yeah, I don't want to say he gets lost because, I mean, you see the vote total in the All-Star game. He'll be starting the All-Star game, but you do forget how young he is, and you forget what a superstar talent he is. We get caught up in the newness of a Chris Bryant last season, and it's just easy to overlook the excellence of Anthony Rizzo, I think.
Yeah, and I like Andrew Kashner pretty well, but man, that trade,
boy.
that's going to go down as one of those trades.
Yeah.
He's been on a roll the last month. He has been incredible. You can see the weighted runs created plus at 215.
Yeah, look at these names. Matt Carpenter, probably one of the more underrated superstars in baseball right now, and those two mashers from the Blue Jays. But Anthony Rizzo right on up there. He has improved his game, and his game was already pretty good.
Little topper out in front of the mound. Goodell hops off and turns it into an out. He's restored out an outing very nicely. And he has sat down 5 in a row.
The commissioner.
Cleaning things up very nicely. By the way, it's time to take a look at our fast cast. What's going on tonight? Texas and New York and the Bronx. Game tied at 1. Bottom of the 9th. Robinson Chinois allowing Chase Headley to score. The Yankees win at 2-1. Michael Pineda struck out 12 batters over 6 and took on a no decision. LA and Milwaukee. 3-1. 5th inning. Corey Seager, a home run off of Zach Davies, puts him up 5-1. Seager's 17th of the year. The Dodgers roll 8-1. Minnesota at Chicago. The Twins on the road. Game tied at 5. 8th inning. JB Shuck, an RBI single to left. Fernando Abad put the White Sox up 6-5. They go on to win it by that score. Todd Frazier, 23rd home run of the year. Tim Anderson had 3 hits. Cincinnati, Washington, Reds taking on the Nats. Already leading 4-1 in the 3rd. Danny Espinosa, a grand slam. Nats up 8-1. They're not done in the 4th inning. Now up 10-1. A 3-run homer again gives them a 13-1 lead. Josh Smith serving that one up. Nats still lead that one by a score of 13-1. Cleveland in Toronto. Indians leading the Blue Jays. Jason Kipnis against R.A. Dickey. 11th home run of the year. Indians 2-0 lead. They currently are on top by a pair, 3-1. KC in St. Louis. Whit Merrifield steering 3rd, and the throw from Pena, an overthrow. Ball lands in left field. Merrifield scores, give the Royals a 1-0 lead. They currently lead it at I-70 series by a score of 3-1. Our fast cast.
I'm not sure it's going to work out for the Reds this season.
Really?
Yeah.
You have some scientific data to back that up.
I know. I was just watching that highlight, and I think that's it. Washington really looks like the team that we thought they were going to be. Yeah. Not good news for the Mets, I suppose.
Cubs, 51-26. And the other teams, we showed you in our Open the wild card standings. Other teams obviously pulling those out.
Look at the Pirates and Brewers actually only being 2 games apart is stunning to me. And the Brewers, I think, have played a little bit better than we thought. Obviously, the Pirates have not played as well as we thought, but that's what really stands out to me there.
Yeah, Pirates really had the old June swoon. But I'm going to throw it out there that the Cubs are going to win the NL Central this season.
Now, it's a way to go out on a limb there.
Wilmer Flores, center field.
First pitch swinging against John Lackey, and as we mentioned at the top, nobody in baseball induces more first pitch swings than he does.
A lot of first pitch outs as well.
Not a bad pitch to swing at. He got it. He made good contact on it. Just, 408 out in center. That probably went about 395, which isn't going to get it done.
Righties hitting 203, slashing 257 and 385 against Lackey. Lefties 238, 314, 388.
This is a thought I've had with regard to this series and what Lackey has delivered for them. And Lindsay talked to Joe Madden about this earlier in our broadcast. Just the health the Cubs starters have had this season. Every guy taking his turn in the rotation. And I don't know that I would have said this going into the year. I definitely wouldn't have said this going into the year. You give me one of these rotations, the Mets or the Cubs, to take through October, I'd have to say the Cubs right now, just the way this year has progressed.
Drops a 1-0 breaking ball in there, 1-1 the count to Travis d'Arnaud, singled and has walked.
And having said that, I think they know that this is not their strongest area of depth in their system, and they're stretching Adam Warren out for this spot start next week. But I wonder if it's something they will address at all at the trade deadline, because they know how quickly this conversation can change with one bad injury. And, you know, Arrieta did throw a ton of innings last season, a high jump. So his command has been off a little bit here, but yeah, we'll see where it goes with that.
It's been a very good night for Travis d'Arnaud, including this, sitting back on a breaking ball.
That's a nice piece of hitting. And like we said, we've never doubted the talent. It's always been about the health for him. He can do that all day long, and it's going to make him a pretty valuable catcher. 98 miles an hour off the bat right there.
John Lackey, Joe Madden. Lackey does not like coming out of baseball games, and the Chicago Cubs with a team ERA of sub-3. See John Lackey head back into the dugout, helping that team ERA, the best in Major League Baseball. And those are the numbers.
And not just by a little bit either. I mean, look at the enormous gap between number 1 and number 2 there. 4 National League teams in the Cleveland Indians, by the way, are winning again tonight. They are a really fun team to watch. But look at the Cubs, we said earlier, not only the best, but on a historic pace.
John going 6 1/3, giving up 5 hits, 1 run earned, 2 walks, 5 strikeouts, 101 pitches, and the veteran Peralta gets the call. Such a unique delivery with that fire right over the top. Joel has been at it for quite some time, and he has well traveled with the Angels, the Royals, the Rockies, Washington, Tampa Bay. Young man out of the Dominican Republic, but played community college baseball in California. There's John in the dugout.
Yeah, Peralta actually DFA'd a month ago by Seattle. He is interesting because he has either the shortest or second shortest extension in baseball. It's about 4 3/4 feet. He short arms that ball so much, but he's been around forever. And obviously, he's a guy who's got Cubs connections now because he played for Joe Madden in Tampa and he played with Ben Zobrist in Tampa. He was actually a teammate of John Lackey in his rookie season with the Angels 11 years ago. So he's been around. He actually still gets strikeouts. 29 strikeouts in 24 innings this year, which is great. 8 home runs allowed. That's always been his problem.
John Lackey done. Lackey with 5 strikeouts. Our StatCast replay of all of those strikeouts powered by Amazon Web Services. We started out with that great extension in the sinking fastball early on.
Look at the movement on these pitches. Great extension, great movement, and a guy who knows exactly where to put them, right? These are just on the corners of the plate. The first one was low. That's obviously the pitcher, Matt, so he went after that one. This is a guy who, he knows what he's doing, and he's still able to bring the velocity.
You were talking about Peralta's career track here. Debuted at 29.
Right,
So,
that's right.
late bloomer, and you bloom late and you stay late. He's now still pitching at 40 years old.
Alejandro De Aza chokes up on that bat, stands close to home plate, and the slider is high. 1-0 the count to De Aza.
You could say that De Aza is having a rough season, but I'm not entirely sure that gets the point across well enough. There have been 334 players with at least 100 plate appearances this year. His weighted runs created plus of 20 is the second worst of all of those. And I don't think Mets fans are all that happy with him right now after that failed bunt from a couple days ago.
There's a good-looking split-fingered fastball diving down and out of the zone. You can see he throws that pitch about 1/3 of the time. It's a big, big weapon for him. Yeah, it's a 6 of 28 as a pinch hitter this year. Beat him at 91.
You hate to put too much emphasis on 102 plate appearances, scattered plate appearances, because that's all he's had. he's really been brutal this year. There's no other way around it. But he's been around for a while. He's always been a pretty useful player. You know, a sometime starter, a good fourth outfielder. I think Mets fans are. It's never. I don't know that it's ever going to work out for him the way that it's kind of started out here. And obviously, he signed with the expectation that Cespedes wasn't coming back, so that's unfortunate. But really been a rough season for him in Queens.
With the White Sox in 11 and 12, sorry about Anthony, in 185 games, he hit 13 homers, on base of 361, he slugged 435. There have been good years for sure, several years ago.
Yeah, and even last year, you know, he had a strong offensive season. He bounced around Baltimore to Boston to San Francisco, but delivered. And I don't know, I actually kind of like that signing when they signed him under the, you know, under the conditions. You knew they weren't, or you thought at the time they were not going to invest much money in their outfield. Like, well, it was a good platoon type, and he thought that as well. It was a good situation for him. And then everything changed when that Cespedes situation unfolded the way it did, and his role, of course, changed. And it's so tough when you, as you said, Mike, when your at-bats are scattered the way they have been. But, geez, OPS plus 80% below league average. I didn't know it could get that low.
Yeah, that's not great.
You're watching MLB Plus, which is featuring StatCast and powered by Amazon Web Services. I love the straight recoil you were talking about at the short extension. It's almost as if he just pitches his body right into a wall. There's an invisible wall right there just a few feet in front of him. Such a unique way he has done for so long.
It almost seems like he's making it harder on himself. You know, adding more distance to the plate, but then you wonder if that's such an unusual thing that there's some sort of deception to it that makes it difficult for hitters to pick up.
You guys think about where the time has gone. This is a pitcher, as you said, it took him a while to get to the big leagues. He's made more than 600 appearances in the major leagues.
Yeah, he was a workhorse on some of those Rays teams, and you know, productive one as well. Not, you know, guys like him don't get much recognition or exposure just because he was never really thrust in that closer situation with any consistency. But a solid career.
Last couple of years, the numbers have gone way up, but he keeps, at least after a while anyway, finding work. ERAs of over 5 and 6. Well, in Washington, that's where he really started on the upswing with a great season in 2010.
Yeah, led the majors in appearances in 2013 for Madden's Rays.
Runner takes off, pitches in the dirt. That was a positive at bat for De Aza, and it flips the lineup back around to the talented youngster Brandon Nimmo.
Well, Mets get another chance with runners in scoring position. There you go. You know, as you detailed very thoroughly before, that's been their issue all season long. And now it's now or never, right? I mean, this is the opportunity. Peralta is not exactly the strongest member of the Cubs bullpen. This is the time to take advantage.
You were saying before our broadcast, Mike, that in the statistical mindset, runners in scoring position numbers are not predictive. With the Mets, they feel predictive.
Right, right.
With the way things have gone.
They do tell you more about what has happened than what is likely to happen, but I understand totally where you're coming from. There's not much about this Mets lineup that gives you a lot of confidence that it's changing soon.
Spazio with the visit to educate on the young man they're going to be facing and talk scouting report with 1 out. Nimmo, by the way, has not had an opportunity with runners in scoring position tonight. He is just 0 for 4, so a tiny sample size, 3 strikeouts. He's seeking his first hit with a runner in scoring position in the big leagues. As you said earlier, the Mets kind of feel like they're seeking their first one.
He's also seeking his first walk in the big leagues. And this is for a guy who had a 385 on base percentage in the minors. Really, his best skill was probably that eye. And he's become a lot more aggressive, I think, trying to get to that power. Mets are, up to the moment, 9 for their last 75 with runners in scoring position. And you feel like that's a streak that has to break, right? Just by definition.
Change up, found him overly aggressive, 0-1 the count.
That is the veteran knowing the scouting report. knowing that he's going to go after you. He's got that split change, a low spin rate, which is exactly what you want because you want that ball to dive. You don't want a high spin on a pitch that's supposed to go down. Even though it wasn't thrown that hard, 80 miles an hour is not an impressive velocity, but good movement on that.
And that splitter, he uses this as change. It looked like it fell down an elevator shaft. Got under that one. It's up in the zone. Snap throw. Not quite sure where he's throwing it.
Good thing Rizzo came down with that ball because he wasn't really covering first base.
That wouldn't surprise me if we could inject Nimmo with true serum. It would not surprise me if he has been a little more aggressive, just feeling you come up in this situation and the team is struggling to generate runs and you're suddenly thrusting a leadoff situation on top of everything else. I'm sure it does change your mindset as a hitter quite a bit to have the anticipation of your first few games in the big leagues on top of the team situation, and it's a lot at once.
Good shot. Peralta from behind there, from behind home plate. A moment ago, chatting with his catcher. Curious why he threw that baseball. Nimmo bends at the knees. Another good split finger change.
I mean, that's how you stay in the big leagues this long. Right. You have a pitch like that and an even acceptable fastball, which he does. I mean, that is a brutal pitch. I think the thing is that you can't throw that pitch every time. Obviously, your hitters will lay off of it, and then they square up that fastball that's okay, but not really elite, and that's where the home runs come from.
That perceived velocity on that pitch, 2.5 miles an hour slower than the actual velocity.
Yeah.
So you talk about the deception there. You see it in the numbers there.
Yeah, that's the short extension. He's almost costing himself speed there.
And maybe that's fine with this pitch. He threw it again. He left it in. But what do? You can't really keep that pitch fair. You don't guess to look for that pitch in. St. Louis Cardinals, Texas Rangers, Baltimore Orioles, those are the teams that hit with runners in scoring position. Tampa Rays, Minnesota Twins, and the New York Mets are the teams that don't. But the Mets are in a basement of their very own. Minnesota at 225, Tampa at 231.
I'm no kinesiologist or anything of that nature, but I would think the short extension would cause more stress on the arm. But again, here's a guy who's been very durable in his career, and I don't think he would teach this necessarily with many young pitchers. But every human body is different. Just goes to show you.
Maybe that's what took him so long to get to the big leagues.
Yeah,
it just looked unconventional.
Right.
But somewhere along the way, the right pitching coach found him, the kind of pitching coach that understands that every pitcher is different.
Yeah.
And realized that it was, albeit unique, a la Craig Counsell approach or something of that matter. That's what works for him.
We talk about it all the time. There are still organizations, and it's changing, but there are still cookie-cutter approaches with young pitchers in various organizations. But the game is certainly evolving to where teams have more of an embrace of unique approaches.
It's a tough at-bat for the kid. He's fouling the ones off that he can't hit. And you can say Peralta really wants to put that split change right past him.
He had better get that pitch down, though. That's twice he's missed up with it. Just one more time. It's not that this young man will hit it in the seats. It's just more hittable. One and two, the count. And a good take.
Yeah, Nimmo's showing a little something here. Now we'll see, if he can turn it into something, if he can drive some runs home, I think that would be even better, obviously. But he's not making this easy on the veteran Peralta.
Yeah, this is a good development at bat, but I don't think the Mets fans will applaud just the development.
No, not at all.
See him rip one.
We demand production. We want results.
Combatants, 3 different windows, and the pitch is low. Another one. He stayed stubborn with that split. The count is full, 3 and 2.
Yeah, I'd say that's a good take, but I mean, that was a no-doubt take. I mean, that ball's easily in the dirt. So what do you think? He comes back with another split change? Does he throw it out of the strike zone and hope the rookie chases?
I'm throwing that split change. Seeing the action and reaction to that pitch, that's what I'm throwing here. But see what he's got. Shaking off something.
He shook him off a couple of times. Maybe just shook him all the way back around to that same pitch. Let's see. He went with the fastball, lined into center field, and it's a base hit. 1 run is in. On to third with the throw. The Mets get it done.
Well, that'll do. That'll do for some Mets fans hoping for some life out of the team. That was a great at-bat by Nimmo. That was a 9-pitch at-bat. Fouling pitches off, laying off those ones in the dirt. And then he rockets that one up the middle. We'll see what the exit velocity looks like when it comes in. But really nice job there.
Terrific at-bat.
Renault scoring easily. Deazza, who walked. Don't forget about the at-bat by Deazza, working that walk. And Peralta, quite human, that run charged to Lackey. A walk and a single, stayed stubborn with his pitches, and you said it. Maybe he's better off going with that split-fingered fastball because the kid was on it. Nimmo was ready for it.
Yeah, that was his four-seamer, which is a relatively average fastball. It was on the corner, it was well placed. But Nimmo was ready for it, so really good job by him. And that's it for Peralta.
It's Pedro Strop time. 31-year-old right-handed reliever. Lackey now has his resume closed for the evening. 6 1/3, 5 hits, 2 runs earned, 2 walks, 5 strikeouts, 101 pitches. 3.27 ERA as he finishes his work for the night. Statcast is powered by Amazon Web Services, powering this replay of the key line drive into center field off the bat of Nimmo.
And 94 miles an hour, obviously not a ton of launch angle, but that's okay because he placed it properly. One right up the middle, second baseman couldn't get to it. That's got to feel real good for the kid.
Big situation for Strop here, and it's the Jake Arrieta trade. We all know that. It's the trade they made with Baltimore for Jake Arrieta, but I was talking to one of the Cubs executives this spring, and he was absolutely raving about what Pedro Strop has meant to this club, on the field, in the clubhouse, just the personality he has, and everything about him. You see his pitch frequency here, but been a workhorse for them, 76 appearances last year, 34 at the midway mark here, and a whip below 1, and he's been a terrific setup man for them. Underrated.
Look at that slider, 50% of the time. You don't see that. You're absolutely right. People forget about him in that trade. 236 innings for the 194 innings for the Cubs, 236 strikeouts. He's been really, really effective, and what he likes to do is use that slider a lot, but obviously he especially uses it with 2 strikes. He'll try to get ahead of the hitter, and then if he can, he'll drop that slider, and it's a really, really effective pitch. It's one of the better sliders in baseball.
Opponents hitting 170 against him with an on-base of 246, slugging 283. Daunting numbers. Dominating numbers, and let's see if he can keep them up. Neil Walker's 1 for 3. 0-1 the count.
And there's that pitch. Look at the movement on that. That is, when he throws it right, and especially when he set it up with maybe a high fastball, it is an almost unhittable pitch.
A spin rate of nearly 2,600. He's another guy that kind of hits the wall with regard to his release, does not get really extended. Kind of a quick whip to the side. He jerks his body to the plate, not a large extension at all.
And all of a sudden it's 0-2.
Bing bang,
quick.
right? I just thought the same thing. Signed with the Rockies as a free agent in 2002 out of San Cristobal in the Dominican Republic. Kind of a wrapped around that slider, kept it up and away. That first slider he threw, he was so far on top of it, it almost looked like the movement of a screwball. I mean, it had such good downward dive to it.
And Dick, even if you make contact, what are you going to do with that? Right? You're not going to make good contact.
Strokes in 6-1, so when that extension is less now, you can tell he's falling off. Bouncing ball, the play out in front, but it's thrown away! It's thrown away! And just like that, Citi Field comes alive. Wow!
Well, that was an aggressive play, and he would have had it. That throw was just offline, and that is not what you expect to see from the Cubs.
Mets lead it 4-3. Baez cutting across right in front of second base, made the right decision, a bold one.
He had him, no doubt about that. Now that's the Javi Baez experience, right? He'll make some of the most fantastically athletic plays you'll ever see, and then throw away the relatively easy ones. And that's kind of been his issue for the last couple of years.
Bryant wasn't to the bag. He wasn't expecting the ball. Baez certainly had to consider it. The angle up above shows that he was 2-3 steps away from the bag. I'll be honest, if he catches that ball, does he even win the race to the bag?
That's a great question, because, yeah, he was pulled away.
So an error on the second baseman.
Well, the Mets are leading somehow. How did that happen?
Mets lead 4-3. A little more extension on that pitch. It's above his height, so that means he cuts that slider short and lets the fastball go with regard to extension. There's a slider, there's a swing and a miss, and they can make quick work. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, Mr. Cespedes.
Yeah, obviously these runs coming in have just about nothing to do with Stroke. He's done his job. He's gotten swings and misses. That was not a hard hit ground ball up the middle. Obviously the defense let him down there.
Yeah, that was an angry at bat for Stroke right there.
I mean, I know we just watched this whole inning. I still can't believe the Mets are leading this game right now. I guess that's what happens. You know, we talked about they weren't getting any luck on batted balls, but there's their luck. Finally things turned their way when the Cubs, the mighty Cubs, threw a ball away.
Yeah, didn't improve their batting average for runners in scoring position, but the fielder's choice plus errors of runners.
Yeah, they'll take it.
That's that angry last pitch, Anthony,
yeah,
you were talking about. James doubled in the 6th inning. And he deals with the fastball, but I think, again, with the anger from Stroke, was 117 miles an hour. He just looks like he has absolutely had it. So Loney's making the most of this, guys, isn't he? I mean, he really, really is. He's kind of locked into that 5-hole, but he's hit 6th and 7th for the Mets. Last 11 games, he's got 13 hits. He's got 3 walks.
Give him credit, man, because he was off the radar. When you're AAA with the Padres, you know, that is off the grid. And gets thrust into this midseason, and as you said, taking advantage of it totally.
Always been a great character guy, was a heck of a high school pitcher in the Houston area. I mean, a big-time high school pitcher. I thought that was his ticket to the pros. Elkins High School, Missouri City, Texas, and he spoiled one of those tough sliders to hang around. Easily, too.
Just watch the movement on those pitches. And they're coming in hard, too. I mean, I don't know how anybody makes contact with that.
We're talking about weighted runs created plus. This year it's 117 for Loney. Smaller sample size, obviously. Last year was 88. That's what you're talking about.
Absolutely. And good return on investment from the Mets' perspective,
Yeah.
because the Rays are picking up the tab still.
He's comfortable taking pitches even. He's been in these zones before. This isn't obviously, he is never has had the power that I think everyone thought that he may have, but he is really had runs where he has been a very solid major league hitter. Long runs. Finished 6th in the Rookie of the Year voting in 07. "32 years old now. The year in 07 for Loney, that was his career high in homers, 15. Mike, Anthony, the Mets lead.
I know, I'm in shock.
I know,
Really.
I'm trying to remind you, make sure you're all right over there. Trying to scientifically explain it, aren't you? Shot. Great reaction by Rizzo right up the ladder. That glove goes. Mike can't explain it. There's something science can't explain. 4-3 is the score. It was a wild throw, it was an errant throw. Although it's tough to explain what has gone on, we'll explain to you why you're here and just exactly what is StatCast.
Several years of research and development were realized in 2014 with the debut of MLB.com's StatCast, the first ever reliable measurement of every play on a baseball field. Pioneered by MLB Advanced Media and debuted with prototypes at the 2014 All-Star Game, League Championship Series, and World Series, StatCast's roots can be traced back roughly a decade earlier to MLBAM's introduction of pitch tracking. Pitch tracking delivered a never-before-seen wealth of detailed information regarding every pitch thrown in the major leagues. Though a bold move at the time, today, pitch tracking technology is ubiquitous throughout broadcast television and baseball's digital products. But despite the data compiled on pitching, never before have there been reliable defensive statistics. The goal with StatCast was to leverage the technology to ensure that defense could be quantified and that a more complete picture of our game be made available to fans. To that end, all 30 ballparks have been outfitted with 2 distinctly different but collaborative technologies to allow for the data capture, optical tracking, and radar tracking. High-definition video camera arrays spaced 15 meters apart to capture stereoscopic video, and a 3D Doppler radar system which captures 2,000 samples per second of the entire baseball field. By marrying the data from each of these systems, it is now possible to scientifically quantify the skills and talents of players on the field using new player performance metrics.
Addison Reed is on the mound out of San Diego State, and he has really found his way in Queens. He has really done a great job since coming from Arizona to the Mets, and this is how he does it, especially this year.
Yeah, he's really changed his game a lot. He used to be a really extreme fly ball pitcher, and that's changed. He's now a ground ball pitcher with strikeouts, 42 strikeouts in 36 innings. He arguably should be in the conversation for the All-Star game. He probably won't because the pitching is very deep in the National League. What he said is the change he made last year is that he started changing his leg kick. He really started lifting his leg higher. He thinks that allowed him to remain consistent, put the ball where he wanted, and he's been a nice pickup for the Mets.
The youngster, Brandon Nimmo, put him on top, at least got him moving in that right direction. And then the miscue is what actually put them on top. Just felt the momentum and then a little bit of help. Reed goes to work. Good tight slider. He just rushes that one to the plate. Very simple mechanics.
Yeah, but you can say his slider looks different than Stroop's. Stroop's is a little more violent and makes that turn a little quicker. But Reed still gets plenty of movement on his.
Oh, 0-2 the count to Wilson Contreras. This is where late in ball games, the Cubs, if you find yourself with a strike thrower with a good secondary pitch, you can work through them quickly. As dangerous as they are, they can strike out quite a bit. That's a breaking ball left up. Long throw across the diamond, unable to make it. Cabrera, not a good 0-2 pitch. He had thrown a wicked slider down, and then he left one that was very hittable out over the plate. And credit to the young catcher. He hung around, and he's on. First hit of the night.
And you're right, he left that one up. Wasn't hit very hard at the exit velocity at 86. Just, you know, been put in the right spot.
No, there's no doubt. If he could have just repeated those first 2 pitches, I'm thinking he had him. Looky, who gets an opportunity for redemption. Baez takes a pitch that cuts down and away. Homered in the 6th inning, singled in the 1st inning. His throwing error put the Mets on top.
Baez has huge platoon splits. He crushes lefties. 471 slugging, 91.6 exit velocity against righties. 251 on base percentage, 352 slugging, 89 miles an hour exit velocity against. Now, a lot of guys have a split, but his is really extreme. That's why he started tonight against the lefty Nats.
From behind home plate, this angle from T-Mobile, our greater coverage cam.
Yeah, when you have drastic splits like that, these situations will find you. That's the beauty of Major League Baseball. You start against the lefty, but key spot here against the righty in the 8th.
Are you notice the Cubs have lefties on the bench?
Yeah.
You know, they've got Hayward, they've got Coughlin, they've got Montero, and since they have 2 catchers on the bench, they can use them whenever they want. Are you a little surprised they didn't bring one of them here?
Yeah.
Count even at 2-2. Addison, outside corner, that's strike 3.
I don't know about that one. I can see why Baez isn't pleased.
Yeah, that was generous to my eye.
That was cool.
Matt Caesar struck out a couple of times. He was going to step into that closer role with the Diamondbacks, and he struggled. Brad Ziegler took it over for him and has been in that spot ever since. With the Mets, since coming over in his 55 games, sorry about that, Mike, he's just pitched so well. We talked about the changes he has made, a whip of below 1.
He has been outstanding. I was just going to say, so now comes the lefty. Now we have Chris Coughlin hitting for Matt Caesar, and I guess Matt Caesar also has enormous platoon splits.
Can only patch so many holes, I guess.
I guess.
So choose your battles and stick with the guy who hit the moonshot earlier in the game, I guess.
Coughlin obviously, you know, is a pretty useful player for the Cubs the last couple of seasons. A 3-win player the last 2 years, and then traded to the A's and really just struggled terribly. Hit 156 at 247 on base, and then got traded back a couple weeks ago. Hasn't really put it together, but 372 on base since coming back with the Cubs. Only 43 plate appearances. He is, I'm going to guess, probably the happiest man on earth to have been traded from Oakland back to Chicago.
Absolutely.
Inside corner, he thought that might have missed in, but it looked like a pretty good pitch. K-rate way up this year for Chris, about a third of the time. He's walking more often, but giving away some at-bats that he's not used to doing.
Coughlin was such an important plug-and-play piece for the Cubs early last year, especially. He was baseball's Iron Man for a while last season. He was a guy who found his way into the lineup on a daily basis, despite obviously not being a guy you think of as a regular for the Cubs, but he kind of made himself one.
It's interesting that Mets are not shifting against him here, because he has been killed by the shift more than any player in baseball. And I think part of it is just that he's not hitting against any defensive alignment, so that probably doesn't help. But especially against the shift, you can see the average against here. You expect Ryan Howard to be on this list. You don't really expect Coughlin to be at the top of that list. And like I said, I don't think he's hitting well at all at any point. But this is a really interesting list for him to be at the top or bottom of, because the Mets aren't really, trying to do anything with it.
Brian McCann somehow is off that list. Good for Brian McCann, the breaking ball in the dirt. Runner moves up and tries to, kind of stumbled into the bag there. Wow. Contreras in the end kind of was doing a bear crawl into that bag, and he's all right. Wild pitch, by the way.
Hitter almost got in the way there. You could see the catcher trying to throw. Coghlan was still kind of in the way. It's not really interference because the ball had bounced behind him in the first place, but I think that helped Contreras make it safely.
I was looking at that lowest average versus the shift board and thinking, how close are we to your average against the shift being just your average?
Yeah, right.
The way
exactly
it shifts
right.
so prevalent.
Chris Bryant with a 2-run home run in the first. Javi Baez with a solo shot in the 6th. The Mets with 3 unanswered. A throwing error of the Cubs' Javi Baez. The last 2 crossing the plate, and that's how they lead it. They've been chipping away late in this game. And right now, as workmanlike and as pedestrian at times as Steven Matz was tonight, they put him in a position to quite possibly win this game.
Coghlan's an interesting guy. He came up with the Marlins, had that Rookie of the Year season, and a lot of injuries after that. We actually had him on the StatCast podcast, and he got really into advanced stats because he realized, that's what teams are valuing. He was looking for his next job or his next contract, and said, if that's what they're into, on-base percentage and slugging, that's kind of really what I need to get myself into. And it really helped improve his game. We saw that over the last couple of years with the Cubs. He became a very useful player.
It's a velocity high this year for Coghlan, 108.11. Within his top 10, you have 102 and up, 6 for 10 in his top 10. With a homer. Just a general buzz around this ballpark. Not a good pace with Reed and Garneau, who have not done well working together.
And we talked about the strikeout, that third strike that Baez did not like very much. And while it was a generous strike, Travis d'Arnaud is an above average framer.
Mm-hmm.
That was really his thing. Is he was have trouble blocking balls, but he's a really good framer. And I think we saw that there. He might have taken that one back.
Being very deliberate with that tying run at second. That time, no miscommunication, pitcher catcher. Reed intentionally just standing until time was called. Wanted to put some lead in the legs of Contreras. You miss with a fastball like that. Looked like he wanted it up from behind home plate, d'Arnaud. Addison Russell is the on-deck hitter. Coghlan in this pinch hit role. It's like 452 a couple of seasons ago for Chicago.
He's making Reed work here for sure. That was the 8th pitch of the at-bat there, and the first 7 were all low. He's really trying to get him to chase, and Coghlan's is fouled off 4 different pitches now, 5 different pitches now.
Addison's strikeout rate about 3 out of 10 this year, up from his career, well above league average. More important, his walk rate down. Got away with the slider up there. White Sox 3rd-round pick in 2001 went to San Diego State University. Cubs have dominated this regular season series since 2010. Oh, baby, what a slider. Woo-hoo-hoo! The bottom fell out of that one. Throw it to a lefty. You started at his hands and it disappears.
a great pitch, and that's a guy who doesn't get a ton of swing and miss, Reed. His success has been, you know, more over the plate, on the edges, and getting weak outs, but got a big strikeout there.
Yeah, that's such a hard hit to pitch, but almost worse than that, it's a hard hit to pitch to lay off.
Yeah.
Right? There's nothing good can come out of probably making contact with that. It's another foul ball at best. But you can't risk letting it go by either.
Here's Addison Russell. Throws him the slider, jumps out and ambushes it, but it's foul. Walked a couple of times, grounded out. One for his last 10, but he does have those 2 walks, probably going to be heading in the right direction. Addison's been quiet the last month of games. No strikeouts and hits. Told you that story about the growing up he did after USA Baseball's Tournament of Stars in 2011. The summer before, Barry Larkin visited a camp in town, and he went out, and that was another inspiration, seeing what a major leaguer looked like in the flesh, and a shortstop in the flesh.
That's a good one to emulate, too.
And the guy that's old enough to be your father that looks as good. And although, if we're to listen to, as you missed that one, the stories of that he was a little bigger in size, maybe even looked in better shape at that point than Russell. Probably inspired him, man, if I want to be what he is, I better at least look like him, and he's retired.
Absolutely.
So good for Addison. Some noise at the yard. Nice job blocking that up at home plate by Darno.
Russell can justify a lot of that all-star love right here.
Yeah, really. Well, to the minute, we got 2 hours left.
2 hours left for Corey Seager. Make the push for Corey Seager.
.22 pitches in the inning, 2-2, 2 outs. Deuce is wild right now. Reed, good take.
Wait, Reed's not making this easy, is he?
Oh.
He's so much more comfortable in day games and home, hitting below 200 on the road this year. Count is full. Runner at second. Shot. And he hangs around.
.24 pitches for Reed, and you have felt every single one of them watching this game.
There is the Addison against Addison matchup, by the way.
Oh, I like that.
An uncommon name, and they're battling the two of them. The bat rage is on. 25 pitches in the inning.
It's fouled about 125, I think, and they've all been fouled off.
Breakouts down, walks up for this young hitter. And the walk rate goes up again. Tying run on, go ahead run on. That's 3 walks in this game.
Yeah, I know Reed's whole idea is that he throws that slider, and it's a really good pitch, but it does not seem like he wants to challenge anybody. If these guys aren't going to go outside the zone for him, he's not going to get outs.
Collins will take the baseball from Addison Reed as Addison Russell is on with the walk. Getting very interesting now, gentlemen.
This is the pitcher spot coming up. So presumably we're going to see either Hayward or Montero, I would guess. So I haven't seen this coming in, but it's probably one of the lefties for the Mets.
Looks like Jason Hayward had a bat.
Here's Jerry Blevins.
Blevins gets the call from the bullpen. 32-year-old left-hander.
They're quite comfortable in Queens. No one's getting out without a little perspiration.
Really? I know Hayward has not had a great year, but to have him be the guy you can pull off the bench in this situation, that says a lot about how deep his team is.
And this is where Blevins has inherited 24 runners this year, and 2 have scored.
You talk about a loogie. That is his entire existence for being against lefties for his career. 260 on base. Against righties, 333 on base. The slugging and batting average kind of follow that. So a pretty big difference for him. Really, he just throws a four-seam and a curve. He used to throw a cutter, but really just kind of goes with those 2 pitches. A slider too, I guess, but primarily the fastball.
A moment ago, a very good at bat by Addison Russell. His 3rd walk of the game, and just refused to chase. And pitches that were close that he couldn't do anything with, he fouled off. And then that. It was as if he knew that slider was coming. Because an aggressive young hitter in that situation, you wouldn't be surprised at all to see him swing at that. So the New York Mets have grabbed the lead, and now they're trying to hold on to the lead. Cubs doing damage early, a pair of home runs. Chris Bryant with a homer in the 1st. In the 6th inning, Javi Baez with a long home run. Yoenis Cespedes with a run back in the 6th, and then the RBI by Nemo just kind of moved the momentum. And though the momentum really led to a throwing error, it wasn't a big hit that the Mets got. It just felt right. The energy in the ballpark. Here's Jason Hayward. 235 average, 326 on base. He's got 4 home runs this year.
Two of those off lefties, should be noted.
He always starts out slow. It really looked like he was turning it around. The first part of June, he's actually pretty hot, but hasn't really been able to keep that up. He didn't start yesterday, he didn't start today. At some point, he's going to need to actually show the offensive skill that everyone's kind of assumed that he's had in him. Although the defense has been absolutely there.
He takes in 1-1 the count.
He's got a complicated swing mechanics, and I think that's why he gets in these ruts sometimes. It's difficult for him to put together a consistent season.
Slow starter, as you can see. August is his specialty, weighted runs created plus in his career month by month.
Obviously, every at-bat right now is an important at-bat, but following him, it's just Zobrist, Bryant, and Rizzo. So, no pressure to get this out here, Jerry.
15 hits and 74 plate appearances with runner in scoring position, 8 walks, 315 on base, just a 231 batting average for Hayward so far this year. Broke his bat. Easy chance. Back to the mound. Easy out in the end. The left-handed specialist pounds that glove and does his job. And the Mets hold on. They lead it by a score of 4-3. We threw him a lot of fastballs, didn't he?
Yeah, well, that bat went a whole lot further than the ball did.
Right.
If we can get a distance on that. That's got to be frustrating for Jason Hayward. A tough season for him, and that's the biggest spot. Good job by Jerry Blevins.
Earlier, Orlando Cespedes launched the ball into left field, and I mean way into left field, into the third deck. And a lucky fan caught that ball, or at least got that ball. We'll get to the bottom of how he acquired that ball. Tim McMaster found them and has a conversation with them. He is our T-Mobile Greater Coverage reporter.
right, guys, first just tell me your names.
Justin.
Meg.
All right, when you bought these tickets, did you think you were going to catch a home run?
Definitely not.
Absolutely.
All right, so tell me the story. The ball's coming up here. How did it all go down?
It ricocheted off of 4 or 5 pairs of hands, bounced under my seat, and I pulled it out of a pile of trash.
That's exactly what happened. I thought he was going to say, like, oh, I, like, whipped off my hat and I caught it, but...
I caught it with my teeth out of midair.
He's the trash man. He pulled it out of a pile of trash.
Tim, nice job. Very good job heading all the way up there to that third deck and finding that couple and providing some energy, kind of getting things momentum-wise going in the ballpark as you found them. So Cespedes with another big blow. Cespedes certainly exciting in that all-star discussion as voting closes. When now, Tim? Is it closed yet? You've been keeping track all night for us.
Yeah, guys, a couple more hours on the voting. Obviously, it's midnight Eastern time, so a little bit of ways to go. You know, last time we got the reports, there were some close battles. You guys, I know, talked about second base a little bit, and Daniel Murphy trying to make a run there. You have all these Cubs players, obviously Addison Russell, I heard you guys talk about as well, whether or not he can hang on at shortstop. It's going to be interesting. Buster Posey has caught Yadier Molina behind the plate in the National League. You have a whole bunch of Cubs, and of course, Yoenis Cespedes, the guy that hit that long home run, has taken the overall lead in the outfield, barely, just by about 4,000 votes last time that numbers were released, but he's the overall leader as far as outfielders go now in the National League. And Jason Hayward, that guy right there, he's actually in 4th place. He's got a shot. He's kind of on the outside looking in, but he's in 4th place in the National League outfield discussion.
Tim, with Clayton Kershaw now going on the DL, he might get robbed of yet another All-Star game start. Who do you think Terry Collins is looking at for the NL starter?
That is a tough one. I mean, you'd like to see, you usually see the coach that's making the decision, the manager that's making the decision maybe stay close to home. Noah Syndergaard obviously hurt. You would have thought maybe Terry Collins goes that way, right?
No, you're exactly right. By the way, the Cubs go to their pen now, and that one is rocketed to center field off of Cahill. Tim, their ERA, Cubs pen this year, 3.57. That's a run higher than those of their starters, and that's one area that I would imagine we will see addressed heading into this trading deadline.
Yeah, it's interesting, guys. You know, all the statistics that the Cubs dominate, and it's really across the board. They're so good in everything. The run differential is kind of ridiculous, plus 170. The next team is the Indians at plus 91. But one number where they kind of come up short is one-run games. They actually have a losing record, and that record, if this game stays the way it's going, it's going to get worse. They're 10-11 in one-run games. Actually, no team in the NL Central has a winning record in one-run games, but it makes you wonder how much of that is the bullpen. Joel Peralta was brought up this week. They were hoping he would kind of help out. He didn't get it done tonight. They hope Carl Edwards Jr., the young prospect, they hope he can be effective, and he has been so far. He came up last week, 4 games, 5 2/3 innings, 8 strikeouts. He's only given up 1 earned run, but you know they're going to be busy at the deadline. And it feels like the Yankees could end up being that team that they partner up with. You know the Yankees are playing well right now. They're going to hang on until the very end as far as deciding whether or not they're going to let somebody go. But with all the prospects the Cubs have that they could send somewhere else, you would think Aroldis Chapman could look really good in a Cubs uniform come August.
All right, Tim, thanks. We'll talk with you in our postgame. Wilmer Flores 0 for 3 tonight. You got Cabrera. You got Johnson, did Trevor Cahill. Looks like Addison Reed, who we saw last inning, Cahill struggled for his role, not in the bullpen in Arizona, but in the rotation. He's found a home as a reliever, sinker baller, and maybe even throw a little bit harder.
Yeah, the way he has turned around his career has been impressive. He was actually got designated for assignment. He was released from the Dodgers AAA farm team last year. He landed in Chicago, and suddenly, started throwing harder. Went from 90-91 to 93-94. But almost as important, when you're a reliever, they can pick and choose where your spots are. So all of a sudden, he's getting the platoon advantage. When he was a starter with Arizona, 45-48% of the time he'd have a platoon advantage. Now it's over 60%. That's a big deal. He's not facing as many lefties. You can drop your worst pitch. There's a lot of reasons why coming out of the bullpen is a lot easier.
He was the first of this rash of guys this winter to decide to sign with the Cubs despite arguably better opportunity or better money elsewhere. For him, it was opportunity.
Wow.
Oh, that guy's happy.
That was a freebie. Spectacular.
Yeah,
big swing and a big miss.
But for Cahill, it was he arguably had a better opportunity with the Pirates to potentially break into their rotation, but it was a much tougher rotation to crack with the Cubs. But again, that Cubs love really spread this winter. Hayward and look at this bat fly. What's the exit velocity on that bat?
I don't know. Unfortunately, everybody's okay, and that guy gets a great souvenir. That inning ended really quickly. How impressive is Cahill right there?
Dominating stuff. I don't know if this will make our in-game StatCast look back, but it should, because
yeah, pay attention,
Mike will
people.
find a way to track it. That's what's going on. Speaking of our in-game StatCast recap, let's take a look at what we have seen tonight. Mike, Anthony, join in with us. It's powered by Amazon Web Services. First up, Chris Bryant, home run.
Chris Bryant, yeah, at 33 degrees launch angle. It's higher than usual. It's not going to be the highest we're going to see, I'm guessing here. But, you know, this was the pitch from Matz we saw. It was the sinker that had a little higher spin. It stayed up, and Chris Bryant was able to crush that one. This is really where we thought Matz was going to end up in trouble, but he did a nice job coming back after that.
4 strikeouts in a row. We'll see a Lackey strikeout, and we'll see a pair of Matz strikeouts, including one against Bryant.
That's a nice pitch. I don't know that Brian agreed with that, but
a good diving breaking ball, good extension from Lackey, and an Anthony Rizzo double hanging back against the lefty. It's a velocity of about 100 miles an hour. You see the launch angle there. Chris Bryant with a catch on a screamer.
Yeah, 104 miles an hour off the bat. It's a hit about 66% of the time at that angle. Really nice play by Brian. He's a bit of an underrated defender at third base, I think.
You are perplexed by this launch angle.
That is a moonshot. As you said, off the bat, it almost looked like a pop-up, but it kept on going. Launch angle of 40 degrees is pretty high for a home run.
And then a third decker.
Oh, look at that. Longest home run of the year for the Mets, and I think you can see why. 441 feet, that's the perfect combination.
A hit with a runner in scoring position. There's no science to that.
That's just good placement.
And then base running. Let's track him all the way around.
Yeah, he should have been out. Hey, it doesn't matter how fast he was. That was a poor throw, but you know, good on him getting up, coming home, scoring the run. He might be the hero of the game if they hold on to this.
Everyone is okay, by the way, with that bat that sailed into the stands. All right. Will it be a clean save for the hard-throwing right-hander, Jeurys Familia? Familia, who doesn't quite throw that wicked split like he did a year ago. A lot of heavy fastballs and sliders to go along with. Everything down and diving.
You make a really good point. He doesn't throw the splitter. And that was kind of midway through last season. He starts up with the splitter at 95 miles an hour. No one had ever seen anything like it. It was absolutely dominant, and it's just not there this year. Doesn't mean he hasn't been effective. It just means he's become less of a strikeout guy and more of a ground ball guy. He's throwing 64% ground balls. That's great too. It's just he's become kind of a different guy than the absolutely dominant guy we saw last year.
Miguel Montero, we spoke of his struggles, the oft-used catcher over the last half-decade. Montero called upon a pitch hit in Albert Almora's spot. Miguel over the top of that one, 0-2 the count on Montero.
So these two are an interesting combination because, as I just said, Familia is getting a lot more ground balls this year. Montero's problem is that he's hitting more ground balls, from 40% to 55% this year, and as you'd expect from a slow-footed catcher, he hits 113 on grounders. So doing that more often is a big part of his problem.
192, 301, 323 this year for Montero. A couple years back had some really special seasons. And also at that point, when he was grinding almost every day, when Kirk Gibson was his manager, he was very good. He got better and better defensively every year as well.
Yeah, unfortunately, the catcher aging curve can be pretty steep, especially guys who are ridden as hard as he was in Arizona. So, but yeah, he's kind of fallen off a cliff here offensively this year.
That's got to be worrisome for him, considering how impressive Wilson Contreras
Absolutely,
has been.
absolutely.
4-3, the Mets lead it from above. Our team mobile, greater coverage cam. From the heavens, peering into that strike zone for Miguel Montero.
I'm just looking at Montero's late and close split, 105 average, 502 OPS. So
I don't think it's going to get it done.
It's been bad all over, but particularly in these situations.
Chris comes up and in. Against familiar opponents, 237, 298, 281. Triple slash. That's with a 317 batting average for balls in play. Montero is on. There is a walk. Montero worked himself through it. It's not going to be easy. By the way, we're glad you're with us tonight. And you're watching MLB Plus. It's featuring StatCast, powered by Amazon Web Services. That'll be it for Montero.
A great job by Montero, but I mean, Familia, you've got the catcher who's having his worst year pretty much ever, and to put him on base to start this inning off is obviously not exactly what he had in mind.
Probably Travis Wood out there. That is Wood, isn't it? Always has been a good hitter and a good athlete, so no surprise, Joe Madden.
Well, he'll go into left field next inning if they push it to extras.
Good location.
Walking the leadoff man is the
This is the worst.
Cardinal sin.
So I misspoke last inning because they had the pitcher batting eighth. It actually wasn't, the top of the order coming up, but now it is. And it's actually almost worse because now we put a man on for, Zobrist and Bryant and Rizzo and Contreras.
Familia last year in the post, so good, 14 2/3 innings, just one earned run. The extension, 6 feet, received velocity 95.1 on that fastball, a little bit below 96.
Yeah, even though he's changed his pitch mixture, he's still bringing the velocity. I mean, he throws that sinker really, really hard. And unfortunately for him, he couldn't quite get it over the plate there against Montero.
Zobrist with that unique timing mechanism. Those that are older that have joined us online tonight, remember Joe Morgan, how he pumped that elbow from behind at home plate. Zobrist, in that same way, has almost as if he's a boxer with both fists going forward with the bat. There go those hands. Oh, 2, line drive, well struck right field. It's deep and it's off the base of the wall. Wood is hustling on around. They're going to send the pitcher who is running. No, they'll throw up a stop sign at the last moment. Over the head of the right fielder, a screaming frozen rope line drive off the base of the wall.
I thought we were going to have a play at the plate with the pitcher.
If this goes south, is this worse for Mets fans than if they had just kind of, been losing the entire time? And we kind of talked about this earlier. I know Nimmo is a center fielder. He's having a lot of issues with route running. Obviously, he's new to the stadium, so I get that. But so now you're Familia. You've got nobody out, and you've got 2 on, and you have probably the 2 leading MVP candidates coming for you.
Chris Bryant homered in the first. Pitch is low.
Just send the pitcher. Have some fun, right?
Send him.
Familia 1 wild pitch this year. He had 4 last year. He had 9 the year before that.
That was a big swing.
It was a lively pitch, too. Heavy, heavy sinker.
Might as well run with this late and close split. Bryant's numbers late and close are actually not that great. 205 average and 659 OPS when compared to his numbers overall. Obviously not very strong.
79.7 route efficiency for Brandon Nimmo, and as I said, catches very rarely come under 90. He had a 77, I believe, yesterday. It's quickly growing into an issue, I think, a little bit.
Nasty, nasty, nasty on that two-seam. Beating up the thumb of Darno behind home plate. And be aware of the wild pitch in this situation. Trying to miss the bat completely. And he didn't. 98 miles an hour.
He's got the velocity, no doubt about that.
A little more extension. You can see Velo almost exactly the same. This hit his 4th homer in his last 4 games. That's considering he had 3 in 1 game a couple of nights ago. Looking for the strikeout. Just got a piece. And he got a piece of Darno as well. Ouch. Shin bone area, even though it's protected. Initially thought I wanted to square him up, if you know what I mean, but I think he would have stayed down longer. So I think he's better off now for the wear. Wants to miss the bat on 1-2. He did. He did. One big out. 2 more big ones to get.
Look at that pitch in the dirt. We talked about Bryant had improved his strikeout percentage, and he has. But that's still a really hard pitch to hit. And you can see right at the knees, probably would have been a strike, I think, if he'd let it go and just couldn't catch up to it. I was gonna ask about this. I wanted to know if you guys would consider walking in here, and I think that's probably the right call. Try to get that double play.
Oh, baby. As long as you don't shoot it to the backstop, I'm fine with it.
I look forward to automatic intentional walks.
So do I.
Okay, I was wondering if I was the only one there.
No. Look forward to a universal DH and automatic intentional walks.
Amen. Amen.
That's a person raised by a father who had hit in the big leagues for the majority of his career very ineffectively. I say that with all due respect because he won 324.
Well, it's not a conversation Madison Bumgarner wants to have right now, but I think
he can do what he's doing tonight.
Yeah, that's true. Actually, the last time this happened, a pitcher at DH, Joe Madden was the manager. Andy Sonnenstein in 2009 when Madden screwed up the lineup card and had 2 third basemen.
Andy Sonnenstein now trying to be a knuckleballer.
That's right.
Statcast powered by Amazon Web Services. This is Zobrist.
Yeah, so that's a catchable ball. That kind of ball is caught, right? It's a hit about 61% of the time. I'm sorry, catch about 61% of the time. It's not an easy catch, but we saw that 79 route efficiency is not great. Look at Travis Wood getting almost up to 20 miles an hour for a pitcher.
Oh, just more fun for Wilson Contreras. It feels like he just got here. And he has had standing O's and homers as his first hits. He has contributed tonight. He has singled. He has walked.
Familia, before and not including the intentional balls right there, everything he has thrown has been between 96 and 98. All heaters. There's no off-speed whatsoever.
Bases loaded. Pitch number 21. He went on that one. Boy, that has been the weapon. That sinker has been the weapon.
Yeah, that'll bail you out of some jams.
It has to stay there, though. That's the thing. Because all you're looking to do is any kind of contact.
Yeah.
That sinker can also get you a double play, too, at this point now.
This is where we cement the legend of Wilson Contreras. It's already off to a pretty good start.
Twice he has offered at that one now. He'd love a strikeout. He's also rolled up 6 double plays when he's been on the mound. The 0-2. Way in. Did it hit him? They want to know if he went. He dropped that bat. I think it just was an uncomfortable check. It hurt his wrist.
Well, imagine if that got a piece of him. That puts in the winning run.
Boy, that was close. Boy, I tell you. And another monitor. That looked very, very close.
I don't know about that.
See if we can grab that look for you. But first, 1-2 the count. Just got a piece of that nasty sinker. Let's see where, even from that angle, it looked like that bat clearly. You could see the working into that bat fly through the zone. Thanks for grabbing that, guys. Looking to miss a bat again, 1-2. Deals the 1-2. Got him! Down he goes!
That was a big swing. 98.4 on that sinker. So you have a pitch coming in over 98 miles an hour and diving. I mean, this is why Familia is so great.
Fun ball game.
Yeah.
And
it's taking a turn.
And you feel it in the crowd. I mean, this feels like a playoff game for the Mets. There's no getting around it. We saw the way that playoff odds chart was trending for them, and the way the week has gone for them. They need this one bad.
No, they still are very much in the wild card. That was the division that we showed. That's not looking great, let's be honest. But the wild card, that is wide open for them.
Dangerous, free swinging Javi Baez. Same spot, but that one's rocketed foul. Got a little bit more of the play. Boy, he is just trusting that pitch.
Yeah. Well, get beat with your A game if you're going to get beat. So he's going with it.
No, not that it's easy to hit a 98-mile-an-hour pitch if you know it's coming, because clearly it's not. But you know it's coming. Yeah. That is all he is throwing. It feels like that should take some of the mystery out of it.
The mystery lies in the amount of movement in that pitch.
He has not thrown one off-speed pitch.
Bases loaded. Boy, he left that one out over the plate, and he got a break. It's popped up. The bases were loaded. The bases now are empty. The Mets win it 4-3. Just a giant jar of Rolaids Familia tonight. Incredible. And his worst pitch was the one that ended the game.
Yeah, oh, he left that one up. I think Baez is going to be seeing that one in his nightmares. That was an opportunity for Baez to really redeem himself, because he threw the ball away. That's, boy, exhale, right? That ninth inning got tense.
Sure did.
Baby, what a game that was. Mets win it 4-3. Now that was a trip to the ballpark tonight.
All he needed to do was just dink it over into the outfield. He didn't even need to be hit that hard, but worst possible outcome. Pop-ups are essentially strikeouts.
A lot of good things to talk about tonight from the New York Mets. They had some help, but again, you don't get to that point if you don't grind at bats out. You don't have the Cespedes homer. Look, if their offense is going to turn, it's going to be one guy who's going to do a lot of the heavy lifting. He can't do it all himself. And I know it was kind of a rally killer, if you will, to hit a homer, but it still started to raise the spirits and to send the offense in the right direction when Cespedes hit that homer. Loney came up with a double after. They failed with a runner in scoring position twice. And then it's the kid, Nimmo, who breaks that little bit of a curse. I know an error is what got him going in the right direction with jumping ahead, but Nimmo's hit.
You got to make your own luck, right? That error doesn't happen if you don't have men on base. And, as we said, that's kind of Baez's issue. Super talented, incredibly athletic, makes kind of the silly mistakes at times. But, Nimmo, that plate appearance, to get himself on base, to get himself in position, to even be there, that was a real turning point for the game. Gave some of that back with some of his plays in the outfield, I think. But the Mets have to be really, really happy about this because I thought Matz was in for it. That first inning got rough for him to give up the home run to Bryan. He really turned it around. The bullpen was efficient. They finally got some runs on the board. Obviously, the Cubs defense helped. Great win for the Mets. Big win for the Mets.
Huge win for them. I mean, they were mere outs away from their season-high 5th straight loss, and it doesn't have to come in some 8-run binge and an 8-run inning. It can come in those little moments where you get a break and you take advantage of it. That's what they had here tonight, and maybe it's a springboard for them.
So, guys, there were a couple of things we talked about when we came on the air, and I want to revisit them right now if you guys don't mind. And the first one is the concept of Matz and how he may work through it. Steven Matz. Tonight he went 5 1/3. He gave up 7 hits, 3 runs earned. He walked 3. He struck out 6. Threw a lot of pitches. Kind of seemed to try and change the way he pitched. Thank goodness not his mechanics. But both of you guys weigh in and start with you, Anthony, on what you saw with Matz tonight.
Well, I was thinking when he came off the mound, and he was very frustrated, obviously, but I was thinking I hope he can, when he does calm down, he can look at this as a positive step, because it really was. He made those 2 mistakes, but again, he pitched effectively with a different repertoire. He got good looks with that changeup, and I really thought it was a positive step for him, and I think the outcome will allow him to see that a little more than he might have in the moment he came out of the game. So again, they needed quality innings from him. I think they got that, put the bullpen in a better spot than they've been in this week.
Yeah, I said at the beginning of the game, you can pitch effectively with a bone spur. And to be honest, I'm not sure if I meant it or if I just felt we were being overly negative about the Mets and about Steven Matz. But he really can. The velocity was there. The velocity is actually better than you've seen. He still throws the ball, if you got 95, 96 from the left side, that's going to be effective. And I think that changeup really plays up. It's a better pitch than I thought it would be. It's an effective complement to the fastball. If he's got a 95-mile-an-hour fastball, a good changeup, and at least a decent curve, and it's probably better than decent, that's good enough. You can be good enough with that.
We'll have Tim McMaster from the ballpark. We'll get your guys' thoughts on Lackey and also the Mets offense. But first, here are the sights and sounds of this one tonight.
Here's the pitch to Bryant. Swung on, hit high in the air, deep left field. This ball is back to the wall. It's got a chance. Gone. And